Honorable Deputy Prime Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am Deborah and I feel privileged to welcome you all on behalf of the Organizing Committee to the Primary Healthcare 12 Biennial Conference. This year under the title Primary Healthcare Unlocking its Full Potential. This year's conference will focus on the growth of the primary healthcare and the way forward. We can start immediately and leave it up to the keynote speakers to give us a walkthrough on the remarkable levels of development. Wish you all an interesting and fruitful day. I now welcome Honourable Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Health, Mr. Chris Fearn, on stage to deliver his opening speech. Bonjour.
Bonjour. Giornata tajba. Bravi. Il-ħajja fiha ħafna deċiżjonijiet. Kull jum darodu minn x'san ingravata ħamra jew ingravata blu jew ingravata kannella. Se nsajru, se niklu, mhux se naraw television jew noqogħdu naraw ktieb, se naraw fuq television. Ħafna deċiżjonijiet li ta' kuljum ikunu deċiżjonijiet żgħar, konsegwenzi żgħar. Però mbagħad ikun hemm deċiżjonijiet akbar, mhux neċessarjament li nieħduhom kuljum, konsegwenzi kbar ukoll. Il-partner li ħanażlu għal ħajjitna naħseb l-ikbar deċiżjoni, l-ikbar konsegwenzi illi ikonna f'ħajjitna u se jkollna tfal, kemm se jkollna tfal, konsegwenzi kbar ħafna, deċiżjonijiet kbar ħafna. Fejn ħammorru noqogħdu, u x'noqogħdu se nixtru dar u se nixtru flat, u x'fin-naħa t'isfel jew naħa ta' fuq, u x'viċin il-mammi jew x'il-bogħod, kollha bil-konsegwenzi tagħhom, u x-xogħol u x'karriera ħaneħdu. Aħna li hawn din il-Kamra u għaluf oħrajn bħalna li jaħdmu fis-settur tas-saħħa ħadna d-deċiżjoni pjuttost kmieni f'ħajjitna illi nażlu karriera fil-qasam tas-saħħa. Deċiżjoni li għandha konsegwenzi, mhux biss fuqna u fuq tal-qraba tagħna u l-familja tagħna, imma ta' kuljum fuq għexieren ta' persuni oħrajn illi jintaqgħu magħna. Id-deċiżjoni li aħna ħadna li nkunu parti mis-Servizz tas-Saħħa ta' Malta tagħtina l-opportunità illi ta' kuljum nagħmlu differenza għall-aħjar fil-ħajja tan-nies. Ftit huma dawk il-karrieri, dawk il-professjonijiet, dawk ix-xogħol, dawk il-jobs illi tuk l-opportunità, illi ta' kuljum. Sija wara l-oħra, kultant aktar minn darba fis-sija illi tagħmel differenza sinifikanti fil-ħajja tan-nies. Aħna li naħdmu ġo dan is-settur għandna dik l-opportunità. Għażilna dil karriera, studjajna, stinkajna, imissa għandna din l-opportunità illi ta' kuljum nagħmlu differenza sinifikanti fil-ħajja tan-nies. Naħseb din hija l-iżjed ħaġa, l-isbaħ ħaġa illi għandna aħna li naħdmu fil-qasam tas-saħħa. Tista' tkun jiena għamilt ħafna snin naħdem kirurgu ta' tfal ta' kuljum, tagħmel operazzjoni ma tistax tkun qed tagħmel bidla aktar f'ħajja ta' persuna milli qed tagħmel operazzjoni dak il-ħin. Imma kull wieħed waħda minna fil-kliniċi, fis-swali, aħna fejn aħna qegħdin nagħmlu l-differenza fil-ħajja tan-nies. U dak huwa s-sabiħ illi taħdem fil-qasam tas-saħħa. L-istess, il-qasam tas-saħħa mingħajr il-professjonisti, mingħajr l-impjegati tagħna, mingħajrkom, mingħajrna, ma jistax jaħdem. Ma jistax ikollok servizz tas-saħħa illi huwa qed jagħti servizz, illi huwa qed jagħti servizz tajjeb, jekk m'għandekx l-aqwa riżorsa li hija riżorsa umana. Aħna intkom li hawn ġud il-Kamra u oħrajn bħalna. U s-servizz tas-saħħa, kull servizz tas-saħħa fid-dinja, imma aħna s-servizz tas-saħħa ta' Malta ċertament huwa affokat, huwa bbażat Jiddependi minn kemm għandna nies jaħdmu fil-qasam tas-saħħa tagħna li huma dedikati, li huma kwalifikati, li huma kompetenti u li huma diligenti. Aħna f'Malta fortunati jew għax ħdimna, forsi mhux il-fortuna, forsi żmien snin ta' tradizzjoni ta' standards qawwija li għandna servizz tas-saħħa li huwa eċċellenti għax għandna riżorsa umana li hija eċċellenti. Ta' da fismi fisem mhux il-gvern, fisem il-pazjenti, fisem iċ-ċittadini nirringrazzjakom bil-qalb tax-xogħol kbir illi tagħmlu. Jiena bħala dis-sena għandi l-onur li jiena l-President tal-Assembleja Dinjija tas-Saħħa. Ittini l-opportunità aktar milli kelli diġà anke bħala Ministru f'dawn l-aħħar 10 snin issa, illi nintaqa' ma' ministri minn pajjiżi differenti, anke minn barra l-Ewropa, nżur sptarijiet differenti u iżjed ma nintaqa', ma nara u ma mmur nara sistemi tas-saħħa oħrajn madwar id-dinja iżjed napprezza kemm għandna ġewwa pajjiżna biex nkunu kburin. Aħna li nofru dan is-servizz illi aħna dan is-servizz, servizz tas-saħħa aħna. Kemm għandna biex nkunu kburin, kultant laqqas napprezzaw x'servizz nagħtu aħna stess, laqqas napprezzaw servizz nagħtu lill-klijenti tagħna. Issa jekk kull ġurnata ta' kull ġimgħa, ta' kull xahar, ta' kull sena, ħassib jekk tiftaħ il-Facebook min jgħid dik se kienet aħjar, dik se ċara. Kif ikollok 1000 pazjent 999 ikollhom joħorġu b'mod sodisfatt. L-wieħed li ma joħroġ ċara li ħajamel ħajkun il-persuna li ħajgur. Anke dak il-wieħed irridu niġru wara, irridu naraw li ma jkollniex. Ħafna drabi il-problemi li jkollna ma jkunux problemi ta' kura, ma jkunux problemi ta' riżultati. U aħna jiena l-ewwel wieħed bħala kirurgu kelli dejjem l-attitudni isma' aħna fajjaqnilek it-tifel salvajnilek ħajtek billi għamilt sejja tistenna x'ġara. Anke dik l-esperjenza kollha rridu li tkun esperjenza ta' eċċellenza. Jiena ġimgħa l-oħra l-mara llum mara tabiba taħdem magħkom għalt nisimgħek kuljum ma se niġi nisimgħek dalgħodu, mhux tagħmel. Imma ġimgħa l-oħra morna niklu ġo restorant kien l-ikel eċċellenti, is-servizz first class, l-ambjent ma xi sbaħ minnu, ma x'kien it-temperatura ma kienx tajba, garrejt jien u ma ħriġ sodisfatt. Ġifieri mhux is-servizz mediku biss jgħod imma anke dak kollu ta' madwaru. Allura rridu noqogħdu attenti u jiena kuntent ħafna li aħna l-istaff tagħna huwa attent ħafna illi s-servizz li nagħtu jkun servizz komplut għax huwa dak illi fl-aħħar mill-aħħar il-pazjent jgħaddi minnu. Vera illi nsalvaw l-ħajjiet hija l-prijorità, vera illi l-pazjent nikkurawh, illi nieħdu ħsiebu, imma anke l-esperjenza li jgħaddi minnha tajjeb li l-esperjenza tkun tajba wkoll. U dan qed nafsu aktar fuq u r-riżultati qed ikunu tajbin. Aħna l-akbar employer ta' Malta, Dipartiment tas Saħħa. Għandna l-permsek hawnhekk ara kollox fuq spaltu, għandna il-miss kassar ukoll kollox fuq spallejhom, qedlek li ħansemmik. L-ikbar employers ta' Malta. Però għandna bżonn aktar staff, għandna bżonn aktar nurses, għandna bżonn aktar radiographers, għandna bżonn aktar anestetisti, għandna bżonn aktar spiżjara, għandna bżonn aktar social workers għax is-servizz tagħna qiegħed jespandi. Qiegħed inkabruh dejjem nikbru. Jekk tħares li s-servizz tas-saħħa llum, anke tikkomparaha ma' 5 snin ilu, anke tikkomparaha ma' 10 snin ilu, tara kemm qed nikbru u x'pjanijiet għandna biex inkomplu nikbru. U allura tajjeb illi aħna stess nagħmlu r-riklam tas-servizzi li nagħtu ta' kemm huwa rewarding dan ix-xogħol, ta' kif ta' x'privileġġ għandna li kultant aħna ninsoħu li ta' kull filgħodu nistgħu nqumu u ngħidu llum jien ħankun qiegħed nagħmel bidla fil-ħajja ta' tant nies ta' kull filgħaxija qabel ma morru norqdu nistgħu ngħidu jiena llum tejjeb il-ħajja ta' 10, 20, 15 ruħ. Ftitu ma dawk il-każijiet, ftitu ma jiena naf nies li għandhom ġobb li darba fis-sena jħossu li jagħmlu xi ħaġa tajba lil xi ħadd u u li tkun għamlitilhom s-sena sħiħa. Aħna nagħmluha ta' kuljum, il-ħin kollu. Ejja nxandru għadi, ejja ngħidu għadi min għandu tfal żgħar li qegħdin jikbru, li żgħażagħ li qegħdin jistudjaw, li qegħdin jażlu karriera biex meta jagħmlu dik id-deċiżjoni li kollha konsegwenzi mhux biss għalihom imma għal kulħadd jażlu li jitlu fil-qasam tas-saħħa. Għandna bżonn aktar nies ejja nkomplu nagħmlu aħna stess ir-riklam tagħna nfusna. Naturalment in-nies iridu fejn jaħdmu, in-nies iridu fejn l-apparat biex jaħdmu bih. U aħna qegħdin inkomplu nespandu. Aħna qegħdin anke fil-qasam tal-kura primarja qegħdin inkomplu nespandu bħalma tafu intkom f'dawn l-aħħar snin irġajna tajna imbuttatura qawwija lill-kunċett tal-kura fl-irħula u fl-ibliet tagħna. Ġifieri ċ-ċentri komunitarji tas-saħħa, il-bereċ, jekk trid issejħulhom hekk, illi llum ħafna minnkom taħdmu ġo fihom tafu li m'għadhomx kamra mudlama li tiftaħ nofsija fil-ġimgħa, imma għandna ċentri ġo ħafna bliet u l-ħura li jagħtu servizz tajjeb ħafna, ġo ambjent li huwa jilqak tajjeb ħafna bl-apparat li huwa neċessarju u ħankomplu nkabru. Din il-ġimgħa ħankunu qegħdin niftħu il-ċentru komunitarju ġewwa l-Klien. F'Ottubru ħaniftħu ħad-Dingli u l-Qala ġewwa Għawdex u mbagħad f'Novembru ħaniftħu s-Siġġieri. Għaddej x-xogħol ġo Birżabbuġa, għandna premises ġewwa San Ġiljan, ħriġna sejħa għal premises ġewwa Ħażebbuġ u ġewwa Burmarrat. Ġifieri dan huwa l-kunċett li ħankomplu nkabbru, irridu nkomplu naslu aktar biċin in-nies u nixtieq u qed nieħu pjaċir li qed nara illi ċ-ċentri komunitarji tas-saħħa li għandna diġà miftuħin, 25-26 wieħed għandna issa, sal-aħħar tas-sena nkunu lħaqna 30. Nużawhom mhux biss għal ftit sigħat filgħodu, ma nużawhom matul il-ġurnata kollha u nużawhom anke biex nagħtu servizzi illi sa ftit snilu kienu biss issibhom ġo-ċentri tas-saħħa jekk mhux ġo l-isptarijiet tagħna. U tajjeb illi daw qegħdin ninżlu nkunu viċin in-nies, nkunu ġo l-bliet u ġo l-irħula. Bħalma qegħdin nagħmlu anke bit-tisbieħ u l-immodernizzar taċ-ċentri tas-saħħa tagħna. Sena u nofsilu ftaħna l-Gżira, xarejn ilu ftaħna, xahar nofsilu ftaħna Birkirkara, palissa tafu għaddej x-xogħol ġewwa Ħar Qormi, għaddej x-xogħol ġewwa Rabat, sena d-dieħla nibdew il-Florjana, nibdew Bormla u nkomplu nduru kollox. Naturalment, l-idea hi mhux biss li nsebħu, mhux biss li ndaħlu apparat ġdid, imma anke ndaħlu servizzi ġodda. Pereżempju, waħed mis-servizzi li qed nieħu pjaċir nara li sena d-dieħla nkunu qegħdin nintroduċu jidher li ġewwa Bormla la darba nkunu modernizzajna, huwa servizz illi jibda jieħu ħsieb il-pis taċ-ċittadini Maltin u Għawċin. Għandna problema bl-obeżità. Jidher illi sena wara l-oħra ma ħanix irnexxielna nagħmlu inroads biex nindirizzawha. Tajjeb illi nibdu noffru servizz dedikat speċifikament biex nittakiljaw l-obeżità anke fil-komunità u fil-kura primarja tagħna. U f'Għawdex ukoll din is-sena lejn l-aħħar ta' Novembru ħankunu qegħdin niftħu wara li kellna numru ta' problemi hemmhekk mal-kuntratturi li kellna qabel, ċentru issa ġdid tas-saħħa ġewwa r-Rabat Għawdex. Ġifieri ħajkonna ċentru tas-saħħa tar-Rabat Għawdex illi issa ħajkun modern, kbir, biżżejjed biex jilqa' ċittadini Għawċin biex bekk nkunu kabbarna wkoll mal-ħolqa taċ-ċentri tas-saħħa li għandna ġewwa Malta Għawdex. Ġifieri is-servizz tagħna jrid ikompli jespandi. Jrid jespandi mhux biss billi nżidu n-nies imma anke billi nżidu l-faċilitajiet. Il-viżjoni tagħna għax intkom illum qegħdin titkellmu fuq kif ħanimmassimizzaw u kif ħammorru l-qudiem, issa hija li indaħlu kunċett ieħor. Aħna għandna l-kura primarja illi intkom u għandna l-kura terzjarja li huma l-isptarijiet qed nipexxina rassiju ta' Mater Dei hawnhekk. U rrid ngħid li aħna għandna servizz tas-saħħa wieħed ġewwa dan il-pajjiż. Il-pazjent huwa pazjent wieħed. Ma jinbidilx jew l-marda tiegħu ma tinbidilx għax jieħu l-kura fil-kura primarja jew għax jieħu l-kura fil-kura terzjarja huwa wieħed. U għalhekk qegħdin naħdmu ġenejt nieħu pjaċir illi qed ikun hemm u nirringrazzja lil Rosen u lil Ray u l-Silja u l-Joe De Bono illi qegħdin jaħdmu ħafna flimkien biex is-sistemi tagħna u l-kura tagħna tkun seamless toħodha fejn toħodha. Wieħed mill-aspetti li qegħdin nafsu ħafna fuqhom hija l-kura tal-każijiet ta' emerġenza, tal-każijiet urġenti. Rridu naraw illi l-każijiet illi jmorru l-emerġenza ta' Mater Dei ikunu dawk il-każijiet l nies li verament għandu bżonn imorru l-emerġenza ta' Mater Dei, imma illi jekk ikunu diġà ħadu xi servizz, xi workup, xi testijiet, sar diġà xi intervent fiċ-ċentri tas-saħħa tagħna, fil-bereġ tagħna, ikun hemm komunikazzjoni diretta mal-ispeċjalisti tal-emerġenza f'Mater Dei biex bekk kemm jista' jkun il-pazjent jieħu servizz illi ma jkunx idduplikat u kemm jista' jkun mingħajr skossi. U din irridu nagħmluha għax aħna għandna servizz tas-saħħa wieħed u rridu nagħtu fuq kollox aħna qegħdin hawnhekk għal għan wieħed biex nieħdu ħsieb il-pazjent tagħna u l-pazjent huwa wieħed. Però nerġa' ngħid għandna l-kura primarja u għandna l-kura terzjarja. M'għandniex il-kura sekondarja ġe dan il-pajjiż. U din rridu nagħmluha. U tridu tkunu intkom. Il-kura sekondarja l-ismijiet mhuma xejn, nerġa' ngħid hija sistema waħda, hija kura waħda. Imma rridu issa għandna l-opportunità minn hawn u ftit ġimgħat oħra, letteralment ġimgħat oħra, ħankunu qegħdin nibdew nagħtu l-ewwel servizzi fiċ-ċentru reġjonali ċensu Mowran ta' Raħa Ġdid. L-ewwel ħaġa li ħajġri hu illi servizzi u l-istaff li hemm ġewwa ċ-ċentru tas-saħħa eżistenti ta' Raħa Ġdid ħajċċaqlaq għal ġo l-binja l-ġdida ġewwa Dej Schreiber. U ftit ġimgħat oħra la darba ikun lest l-aħħar ftit xogħol li fadal anke internament inkunu nistgħu nibdew nagħmlu żjarat, norganizzaw żjarat tal-ħaddiema u tal-professjonisti tagħna li għandna ġewwa Raħa Ġdid anke ġo ċentru ġdid biex ikunu jistgħu jaraw minn fejn se jkunu qegħdin jaħdmu fix-xhur li ġejjin. Imma li nbidlu ċ-ċentru biss, li naqbdu s-servizz u nagħmluh ġo binja sbaħ mhux biżżejjed. Għandna l-opportunità illi issa li ħanċaqalqu li ħammorru ġo binja akbar isbaħ u żiet attrezzata, inżidu s-servizzi tagħna. Fosthom billi għall-ewwel darba wara numru kbir ta' snin jerġa' jkollna servizz dentali fil-komunità mhux bil-forsi tmur Mater Dei biex iċċekkjak dentist, imma f'Raħa Ġdid irid ikun ħajkollna kliniċi dentali, ħajkollna swali tal-operazzjonijiet fejn kun nistgħu noperaw, ħajkollna outpatients clinics illi ikunu kważi estensjoni ta' Mater Dei, tal-outpatients ta' Mater Dei, u ħajkollna wkoll immediate medical care unit forma ta' emerġenza fejn ukoll ħankunu nistgħu nagħtu servizz tagħna lill-pazjenti ta' isfel ta' Malta. Din hija f'pajjiżi oħra jgħidu l-kura sekondarja. U allura iva ħajkollna l-ewwel darba ġewwa pajjiżna servizz sekondarju tal-kura qed tissejjaħlu. Ħajkollna il-primary care, secondary care u tertiary care għalfejn. Però mbagħad ukoll irridu nkomplu nkabbru fuq dan il-kunċett. Waħda mill-affarijiet li qegħdin naħdmu fuqha u nirringrazzja l-CEO Kamilleri li qed taħdem ħafna magħna fuqha di, hi li rridu jkollna espansjoni tas-servizz tal-screening ġewwa pajjiżna. Il-prevenzjoni hija importanti ħafna u mbagħad li taqbad kundizzjoni kmieni hija importanti ħafna wkoll. U allura aħna l-screening li qegħdin nagħmlu ġewwa l-Belt Valletta f'Binja llum għax is-servizz kiber saret żgħira, irridu hemmhekk nespanduh ukoll. Irridu ħammorru ġew binja ġdida, però maħniex biss ħanibdu l-binja, irridu nibdlu l-kunċett ukoll. U fl-screening ukoll irridu naraw li jekk inti mort tagħmel screening għal colorectal u ġik pożittiv u għandek bżonn kolonoskopi, nagħmlulek hemmhekk stess. Jekk inti għamilt screening għal cervical cancer u għandek bżonn kolposkopi, nagħmlulek hemmhekk stess. Jekk inti għamilt mammogram u għandek xi ħaġa sospettuża u għandek bżonn biopsy, nagħmlulek hemmhekk stess. Ġifieri dan huwa servizz li ħajkun jekk tridu sejħulu secondary care, nsejħulu secondary care, imma li nkunu qegħdin inkabruh biex bekk nkunu qegħdin nagħtu servizz aħjar il-pazjenti tagħna. Ġifieri din hija fejn jridu mmorru, irridu nkabru s-servizz, irridu ntejbu s-servizz, irridu nkomplu nitlu fil-komunità, imma wkoll irridu nagħmlu dik il-qabża illi s-servizz ikun seamless bejn minn mindu pazjent ħoss illi għandu problema, anke qabel bil-prevenzjoni, sakemm letteralment ikun aħa it-trattament kollu. M'għandniex għalfejn noqogħdu ngħidu għax wieħed ta' wieħed u l-ieħor tal-ieħor, servizz wieħed u dan huwa din hija l-viżjoni tagħna u qed nieħu pjaċir nara li dan is-sentiment qed inħossuh qed iħossu kulħadd u qed naħdmu l-koll għalih. Ma baqali xejn ħlief nirringrazzjakom. Nirringrazzjakom nerġa' ngħid tal-mod ta' kif intkom tagħtu dan is-servizz kważi impeccabbli. U nerġa' ngħid, meta tħares lejn dak li jiġri madwar id-dinja, tibda tapprezza kemm f'Malta verament għandna biex nkunu kburin. Kburin bis-servizzi li nagħtu, kburin bil-mod ta' kif naħdmu, kburin bir-riżultati li niksbu. Dan huwa kollu mertu tagħkom. Ftaħru bih, kunu kburin bih, u komplu għamlu dak li qegħdin tagħmlu ħalli nkomplu nagħtu servizz ta' eċċellenza għall-pazjenti Maltin Wawċin kollha. Nirringrazzjakom u nixtieqilkom il-koll ġurnata tajba. Grazzjakom.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Prime Minister, for your speech. I now invite Ms. Roseanne Camilleri, Chief Executive Officer, Primary Healthcare, to give us an overview of the past 24 months of the primary healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fern, for a most inspiring opening address. We really appreciate you finding the time to join us, fully knowing your very busy schedule. Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, Permanent Secretary, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. It is my distinct pleasure and honour to welcome you all to the 2023 Primary HealthCare Biennial Conference, fastidiously titled Unlocking Its Full Potential. As the CEO of the Primary Healthcare, I am thrilled to see such a diverse and esteemed gathering of healthcare professionals, policymakers, researchers and advocates who are dedicated to advancing the field of primary healthcare. As many of you know, primary healthcare is considered as the cornerstone of any healthcare system. Its importance can never be overstated. With 10 health centres, 9 in Malta and 1 in Gozo, 28 community clinics and 12 more in the pipeline, as Mr. Fens rightly said, the Telemedicine Client Support Centre, the Occupational Health Service, the National Screening Centre and the multidisciplinary workforce, we should indeed be the first point of contact for individuals seeking healthcare services. We play a vital role in preventive care, health promotion and disease management. However, despite this significance, primary healthcare often faces numerous challenges and limitations that hinder its full potential. This conference serves as a platform for us to collectively explore and address these challenges. Together we will look at the various dimensions of primary healthcare. And through the carefully chosen topics that will be discussed by the various panelists, we will examine primary healthcare's impact on individuals and communities. We will also touch upon the innovative approaches we have undertaken to unlock its full potential, to create a healthier and more equitable society. Topics such as patient-centred care, healthcare delivery models, health equity, digital health solutions, and the integration of primary healthcare with other sectors. Through the engaging keynote speech by Grant Thornton, reviewing the before and after, and the interactive panel discussions, we will aim to foster and promote a collaborative environment where ideas can be exchanged, knowledge is shared, and partnerships are formed. It is my hope that this conference will serve as a catalyst to continue to push the transformative change programme that started 4 years ago, so that together we will succeed in positioning the primary healthcare to fully become the patient's automatic point of choice. We must acknowledge that primary healthcare is not only about treating illnesses, but also about promoting health and well-being at all stages of life. It is about addressing the social determinants of health, advocating for health equity, and ensuring that everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances, has access to quality healthcare services. The past two conferences, titled Together Towards Excellence in 2019 and Excellence and Beyond in 2021, paved the way for the theme of this biennial conference. We have already started to reap the benefits of this mega transformation and modernization programme that we have initiated in 2019. The 10 million NDSF grant secured in 2019 is facilitating the fulfilment of the holistic transformation of primary healthcare, and in so doing we continue to move closer to unlock its full potential. The COVID-19 challenged us to work faster by communicating better and by breaking down internal silos. We have successfully embraced innovation and technological advancements. We took the opportunity and rode on digital health solutions, introduced telemedicine, the electronic patient health records IT system, and revolutionized the way we deliver care, improved patient outcomes, and enhanced the overall healthcare experience. Indeed, the ability to drive to continually innovate is key. Presently, we are also working on the introduction of the first chatbot, which will focus on client support services across health. And we are venturing on exploring the potential of the application of AI algorithms in breast screening, eye screening, and ECG services. If successful, the harnessing of AI can significantly improve primary healthcare services by helping healthcare providers to operate more efficiently and to allocate resources more effectively. Building on our ISO international certification, we are now moving on to attain clinical accreditation. We will hear more on this from one of our panelists. Indeed, we must recognise that primary healthcare cannot work in isolation. It requires collaboration and partnerships across sectors, including education, social services, and community organisations. By integrating primary healthcare in these sectors, we can address the broader determinants of health and create comprehensive and holistic care models that truly meet the needs of individuals and communities. Equally important is sustaining patient empowerment. By continuing to create a supportive and collaborative environment where patients feel respected and heard, patients are more likely to feel involved and engaged in their care pathways. As we continue this journey of unlocking the full potential of primary healthcare, I urge each and every one of you to actively engage, share experiences, and contribute your expertise. Only together we can shape the future of our healthcare. I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the organising committee, our sponsors, and all the speakers and participants who have dedicated their time and efforts to make this conference possible. Your commitment in advancing primary healthcare is commendable. In conclusion, let me embrace this opportunity to unlock the full potential of primary healthcare. Let us collaborate, innovate, and advocate for a health system that truly puts the health and well-being of individuals and community at the forefront. I am confident that our collective efforts will lead to the completion of the desired transformative change programme, in line with our projected targets. While I wish you all a productive and inspiring conference, I would like to invite you to watch this short clip showcasing the primary healthcare's remarkable infrastructure transformation trajectory to date. A transformation that aims to create a space that portrays a general feeling of well-being for the patients and our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Camilleri, for the interesting and motivating speech. We are very honored and privileged to have you as our team leader. Now, I cordially request Mr. George Vella, Head of Advisory and Partner at Grant Thornton, to come on stage for his speech.
Thank you. This is our second invite now. As the Minister was saying, we come from a profession where to make a difference is slightly difficult, not as in your case. So this is one of the projects we have supported some years ago and continue to support, and we carry a lot of pride in it as well, because we know that there are outcomes coming out of it which are quite interesting. So this time round, we've gained much more traction, because the last time we met, it was still in the initial stages. Now we have a number of reports that we are going to be summarizing here. However, there is much more detail to it than there is in these slides. So going directly into the subject matter, as we said, some years ago, I think it was 18 or 19, we have been engaged to support the primary healthcare to obtain the funding from NDSF with a very clear specific use for those funds, to refurbish health centers, to refurbish community centers, and to create centers of excellence. And we're here also because NDSF asked us to ensure that when this money is being spent, we showcase the results that are achieved. So this is like, the slide is just saying how we've gone there. Once the grant was awarded, then the surveys that we're going to be summarizing in this presentation kick-started, despite the fact, unfortunately, that we had a slowdown a little bit because of the pandemic. But now in this year and in the previous year, we really made up for the lost ground. So how did we go about it? We obviously had to do a pre-review to see what the state was before the intervention. And now we are coming in through a phase where we are also seeing the post-implementation review. And mainly what we're focusing on is, what are your patients, what are your clients saying about how they perceive the service before the interventions, and how they are now perceiving the service afterwards. So obviously we're focusing on patient satisfaction, first points of access, awareness, accessibility, and service delivery. This is not news to you. You know where the health centers are, where the two new secondary health centers are going to be located, and the 20 different community clinics. So how is the reform being monitored? So we carried out patient surveys targeting all patients at each of the 8 health centers. Then we also carry out a population survey, and in the initial part of the presentation we'll be focusing on what the patients are talking about, then what the population, not necessarily people who are actually using your services, and obviously supporting that through internal record verification. So I hope you can see that, but these are the surveys that were carried out. The dots in blue are the pre-intervention patient surveys we carried out. The white ones are the post-implementation patient surveys. So by now we've already carried 4, 1 in 2021 and 3 in 2023. The light blue is the population survey, and that had to happen earlier so that we know exactly what the perceptions out there were. So as you can see now, the number of surveys that have been carried out is picking up ground. There will be much more coming through, and hopefully the results of these surveys will add a lot of value to what you are trying to achieve. So if we go directly into the results, these are the pre-intervention patient surveys. And in here, when we're looking at the accessibility of health centers, health center facilities and PHC systems, we have in general quite some high scores. However, at that point, Gozo and Gżira were low. And now we'll see how the post-intervention, how these results have changed after the intervention was carried out. This is another interesting fact. We ask the people who are already your patients, what is your first point of contact within your community? And in some of them, in Rabat, in Gozo, Gżira, and Kospikwa, the health center was the first point of call, whereas in Ormi, Birkirkara, Florian and Mosta, the most predominant was the private GP. However, I need to highlight that these were surveys carried out by people who are already using your services. At a later stage, when we look at the population survey, we'll see some distinct differences. Service delivery. In terms of positive satisfaction levels with the healthcare professionals, as you can see, the first part of the table is something that I wasn't surprised with, because we know that the service that you provide is incredible. However, as the Minister was saying, that is not the only thing that patients look for, but they also want to have a holistic service. And one of the things that we looked at are waiting time at all health centres. So the first seen on time, 30% of walk-ins are seen on time, 47% of referrals are seen on time, and 51% of follow-ups were seen on time, with some delays registered in the next few lines. I think from the surveys we carried out, it's very clear that lengthy waiting times bear a huge influence on patient satisfaction and perception of the healthcare system. In fact, lengthy waiting times is the most common response among those patients who do not view the healthcare as their first point of contact. So this is the first interesting thing that came out. Another thing that we've learned was the surveys also revealed that 57% of respondents would prefer to get treated by the same healthcare professional, while the rest have no particular preference. And this is possibly one of the reasons why people would prefer their GP rather than the healthcare system, the primary healthcare system, because possibly of lack of perceived continuity in the healthcare professional. And this implies that continuity of care and familiarity is an important factor among patients. Now, when we start going into the results of comparing the pre and post intervention analysis. So in Gżira, the satisfaction with facilities grew from 67% to 89%, and satisfaction with PHC system grew from 71% to 89%, and the first point of contact grew from 47% to 65%. So those are considerable, in my opinion, considerable good results. In Birkirkara, on the other hand, the pre-intervention, the satisfaction with facilities grew from 81% to 89%, whereas the satisfaction with PHC system grew from 83% to 90%. In terms of first point of contact, this grew from 47% to 67% post-intervention, and this is a very clear demonstration of how important these interventions are. Another very interesting one is the Podiatry Center of Excellence Patient Survey. Here again, the satisfaction levels grew significantly, so whereas pre-implementation we scored 5 with 64% of respondents, after the intervention 83% answered, ticked as very satisfied. And there are no one who is ticking extremely dissatisfied. In 2021, 40% of patients reported observing a great improvement in the level of care at the Podiatry Center of Excellence over a 2-year period. This is up from 15% reported in 2019, which is the pre-intervention period, and no patient reported deterioration in the level of care. So these are quite some interesting ones. Again, waiting times. So let's start off follow-up. Follow-up has in 52% in 2021 as 81% in 2019. So in terms of referrals, 18% in 2019 going up to 34%, and walk-ins from 1% in 2019 to 14% in 2021. The number of patients that were seen on time after the intervention increased by 7 percentage points. The number of patients that were not seen on time decreased, as can be seen in the chart on the right-hand side. So there the post-intervention is the blue bar, and the pre-intervention is the grey bar, and all the changes are in the right direction. Now, when it comes to the population survey, so this is now with people who are not necessarily using your services. 71% of the population feel that they are either somewhat satisfied or very satisfied with the primary health care. The majority of individuals who indicated that they are neutral and somewhat dissatisfied fall within the 18 to 34 age bracket, and their 35 to the 54 age bracket. Now, when it comes to utilization of health centers and community clinics, here are some interesting results. So in the first population, 71% make use of health centers services in a typical year, but only 90% of the population utilize the services offered at their local community clinic. The population is largely unaware. These are some findings that we found. The population is largely unaware of the opening hours and services offered at the community clinics, and 49% of the population are not familiar with the services offered at their local community clinic, while 62% of the population are unaware of the opening hours. Now, these findings will be re-evaluated when the post-intervention, so this was just a pre-implementation. This is the one which I mentioned should be compared to a previous slide. So 62% of the population view their private GP as their first point of contact for minor medical problems. 15% resort to self-care, and only 12 view health centers as their first point of contact. So you can see the big difference between the results achieved here and the results achieved when we were doing the patient surveys in your clinics themselves. Key reasons preventing individuals from using health center services at their first point of access are personal preference to the family GP, 36%, followed by long waiting times, 26%, and health centers being distant from respondents' homes, 13%. Key reasons for choosing health center were the quality of service provided within health centers, followed by close proximity of the health center and free service. Our survey discovered that patient preference for private GPs is a constant trend among all age brackets, indicating that there might be factors such as cultural barriers at play. However, 34% of such individuals still indicated that they would not, suggesting that some patients' choice not to use health centres as their first point of contact might stem from individual preference. These findings will again be evaluated in the post-intervention. Now, when it comes to community clinics, here again, 69% of people were seen on time in community clinics, and 25% only had to wait for 15 minutes. In terms of satisfaction with service received, here we had no detractors. The results were quite impressive, actually. 87% of respondents rated the service as 10, 9% level satisfaction from 1 to 10 at 9, and 4% at 8. Satisfaction with facilities still very high, 84% at 10, 13% on 9, and 2% on 8. So these are quite interesting. This is how the Net Promoter Score works. So the promoters are the people who would score you 9 or 10. The passives are the ones who would score you between 7 and 8. And the detractors are 0 to 6. So as you can imagine, this is quite a very difficult way of how to get high scores on it, and the Net Promoter Score on community clinics is as strong as 97%. So that is, so we only had 90% of respondents provided a scale rating of 10, while 7 provided a scale rating of 9. And we only had 3% of respondents were passives between 7 and 8, and none scored between 0 to 6. So that's quite an interesting one. I'll stop here. I'm looking forward as much as you to the results coming through in the coming surveys. But as you can see, if you recall, last time we had very limited surveys. Now it's very clear that the trend is coming through very, very nicely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Vella. We can now proceed to welcome the panel moderator, Mr. Keith Demicoli.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Fantastic job to you.
Thank you.
Allow me to say hello. Thank you so much, Deborah. I would like to thank all the organizers, including Deborah, because as soon as they decided to have a sofa, they said, okay, let's have Keith to host the discussion, given the analogy between Poġġi ma' Keith and Kelmu fuq xi street. And coincidentally, the brains behind the idea of having the sofa all over in Malta is the daughter of Margaret, sorry. She's somewhere here, actually. Margaret, just wave at me if I may. Margaret, okay, here she is. So her daughter Sarah came up with this brilliant idea to interview perfect strangers on anything and everything. But today we're going to focus possibly to discuss on how we can improve those results. Thank you so much, George, Honourable Deputy Prime Minister as well, and Ms. Camilleri for your speeches. So with that, I'll leave it to Deborah to introduce the panelists.
Thank you. Introducing the first group panel, titled The Multidisciplinary Team in the Community Clinics. We welcome on stage Dr. Charmaine Cremona. Mr. Kurt Azzopardi. Mr. Jeffrey Formosa. Mr. Carmel Cordina. And Mr. Ronald Barbara. I would like to inform you that questions will be taken at the end of the fifth panel. Now I leave the floor to Mr. Demicoli.
Please. Thank you. So thank you so much. I know it's a long way. So my role is to make it as engaging, dynamic as possible. So having a good sofa, it's already a good start. So, if I may start with you, Ronald, and possibly can take us through, and also you can help me as an outsider here, on what do we mean by primary healthcare.
Okay, so.
Sure, absolutely. Here you go.
Thank you. Hello. We've already heard what primary healthcare is. So, Ms. Rosen Camilleri said something about it, and also the Deputy Prime Minister. Primary healthcare is part of our health system, and as it was by its name, it's primary. So, the promotion, the prevention, and also the protection of health is part of the fundamental right of each individual. Mm. So it is important that we as a team, we look for this one. Our vision is that we integrate our health together as a one-stop shop concept to our clients. If you look behind us, we've got our logo. And our logo shows 3 capital C's, which are integrated together for a continuous care. In fact, the capital C's are our commitment, our patient care, and the community care.
Wow, wonderful, intriguing, fascinating. I had no idea whatsoever, so thank you so much for sharing that, Ronald. Dr. Charmaine, if I may, because we've already heard from the Honourable Prime Minister, Ms. Camilleri, and also from George in his presentation, that over the past few years you've managed to achieve so much, but possibly you can enlighten us on what are the primary goals and objectives for setting up community clinics.
Yes, community clinics, Keith, align with the philosophy of primary care, like Ronald said, whereby we aim to provide continuous, comprehensive and patient-centered care according to the needs of the patients. Now, this project started around mid-2021, with Marsa Xlok being one of the first ones being opened. And the idea to open these clinics stemmed from the wish to improve patient care and healthcare in the community, to offer a holistic approach to care, to offer continuity of care, like we've seen in the surveys mentioned before, how patients find these very important to be seen by the same doctor over and over again for continuity of care, and to offer cost-effective care as well. Today, we have over 25 of these clinics that are open, and like the Deputy Prime Minister mentioned before, there are more in the pipeline.
I know this might come as a surprise to you, Dr. Charmaine, but I was a bit struck by the 19% from George's presentation that they think of the community clinic first. Are you somehow surprised with that figure?
No, because we're offering a service within the community for these patients. There is a holistic approach to care, whereby we do not only think about the physical needs of the patients, but they also have a space where they can have their emotional and social needs taken care of. Yesterday there was an article, in fact, on the Times of Malta, how general practitioners have the capability of seeing and understanding social problems even before the patient mentions them themselves. So our aim is to be able to offer these services as close as possible to the patients within the setting of their community.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Charmaine. It was already mentioned earlier on, Carmel, regarding Gozo, and the good news is that we're going to have a new health center in Victoria, but maybe you can enlighten us a bit on the role of the nurse specifically at the Gozo main health center and the peripheral clinics as well.
The Gozo New Victoria Health Center will open in mid or late November. And
I believe you're very excited to that, right?
As clients and patients alike. And we will migrate staff and services there. We are extending the hours during the night, maybe not the whole night, but till late, very late. And as the area permits, it is larger than the old Victoria Health Center, and we will increase the services. For example, we will have 2 large treatment rooms with 4 couches, when at present we have only 2. GP rooms we will have 3, and the NIS will return to the New Victoria together with specialized clinics like diabetes, ACC, services that are new for Gozo, but they are routine given in Malta.
So there is a significant improvement in the services offered from the health center in Gozo.
Accessibility, parking, and new services. The other new project is the ALA, where we will have, it will open for a 5-day week, and it will have
later this year, right?
Later in October. And 4 services will run in the same time. We will have a specialized ophthalmic clinic where we will have the services of screening together, opening every day. Together with the podology, nurse-led clinic, GP for a whole 2 days, and speech therapy. Also at Shawkiya, we started the services of GP because the Berech used to have the half-hour or 1 hour a day of GP, and in the community. So at Shawkiya we have 5 hours times 2 a week on Mondays and Wednesdays, where clients can do an appointment and be seen and followed up by the GP.
Thank you so much, Carmel, Ronald, and also Dr. Charmaine, for giving us a general overview. Now, if I may, I'm going to zoom in on some specific services, namely podiatry and physiotherapy, possibly starting with you, Jeffrey, if I may. Can you describe both personally and professionally the physiotherapy experience within the community clinics?
Hello everyone. Thanks for the invite. The physiotherapy experience was a learning curve. We started off with some hiccups as usual, but now things have improved quite a lot. We realized we had to be flexible and we had to adapt to the situation because it's a continuously changing process. To do this, we built up teams. We did a multidisciplinary team which acted both informally and formally to help to expedite this process. A lot of little things that have to be done, so behind the scenes work we call it. But we did well, and I think now it's quite established and is doing well. Of course, the staff needed to adapt because we are used to working as a team, as a physiotherapy team. And now in the community clinics, you're working in a multidisciplinary team with different needs and different problems. So I think that is the biggest learning curve, and we learned from other professions, podiatry, speech and nursing and GPs. We talk and we learned a lot.
What is the biggest advantage of having a multidisciplinary team?
The biggest advantage is that the customer can be seen holistically. So if, for example, I think that I need the help of the podiatrist, all I have to do is contact my colleague, and we can do it either there and then, or maybe, when the first appointment is available. So it did really do a lot of difference.
But allow me to just congratulate you, Jeffrey, because I really love your outlook. It's amazingly positive, and that's how we all should embrace your outlook as well, because that's the kind of mindset we need in front of all the challenges that we face, not only in the healthcare but in life in general. Okay. So, Kurt, if I may, possibly you can share with us your experience in the community clinics, but from a podiatry perspective.
Well, mainly as podiatrists in community clinics, we offer almost all services provided at primary healthcare level. with the exception of the specialized podiatry clinics. Just as a brief overview, we provide routine skin and nail care, biomechanical assessment, diabetic foot screenings as well. We are also involved in the prevention and management of diabetic foot ulcers. And since these usually require frequent weekly visits before they are completely resolved, it is very convenient for the patient to attend these visits within his own locality. We are also at a very advantageous position to, as has already been mentioned, to refer to the multidisciplinary team, because as soon as we open the door, we have like 5 other professions that are readily available. We have a smaller workforce, so there is less rotation, less staff rotation, so we're seeing the same faces day in, day out. And it facilitates the referral process. It makes it easier to follow up on the progress of a particular patient, maybe consult for some advice regarding the treatment. And I think that these are the right ingredients to establish a multidisciplinary team that is functioning at its best.
Kiet, with the opening up of many other community clinics, what is the way forward for podiatrists in these clinics?
Well, to answer this question, we must first understand that community clinics are a form of decentralization in healthcare, and what this means is that we are aiming mainly to increase the accessibility of the healthcare to the patient, but there is also another aim which happens at an administrative level to increase efficiency, mainly because the decentralized health professional is further away from the central administrative body, hence increasing his autonomy and making him more flexible to deal with the specific situation that is happening within that community clinic. However, for this to function, you need to focus on 2 factors for this future plan, which is capacity and accountability. You need to have capable people working to make effective use of that freedom, which is achieved through training, and we already have within the Allied Health Staff Development and Training Task Force. We're adopting a very smart approach, I must say, to training these individuals by first providing a self-evaluation form so that we are able to communicate our specific needs, which they in turn use to provide specific training programs to each health professional. And with the second factor, accountability, it basically means that you have the right checks and balances in place to make sure that the standard of quality of care is being met. Already, our management team has a quality assurance team established, whereby they establish KPIs, followed by regular audits to determine if we are reaching these objectives. And I believe that the future plan should build upon these existing strategies so that we can maximize the benefits of our decentralized healthcare system.
Jeffrey, I don't know, given that you're next to Kurt, but besides capacity and accountability, which were highlighted by Kurt, what other initiatives or measures you foresee that we should undertake to improve the current services?
From a physiotherapy point of view, obviously we have a lot of ideas. Some of them we haven't yet told management about. One of them which we really want to work on next year is what's known as first contact practice, which basically means that the patient can be seen by a physiotherapist instead of another allied health professional or a doctor immediately. We're obviously referring to musculoskeletal conditions, which is what we normally treat. I believe this initiative will help to alleviate a bit the load on our GPs, because as we know, about 40 to 45% of cases which are seen in health centers are mostly musculoskeletal. Our idea, of course, we need to discuss this, but our idea is to have a physiotherapist who is present in the treatment room who can actually help out the doctors with any musculoskeletal cases that come along.
Fantastic. On the same line, Dr. Cremona, maybe you can mention and outline any incentives that you're focusing on and possibly you're already contemplating, considering to improve the overall community well-being.
Yes, Keith. There are many exciting things planned for the near future, but just to mention a few that they are right now in the pipeline, we are going to introduce a pathway where our healthcare professionals can identify non-communicable diseases. We are going to offer training to all the healthcare professionals working within our community clinic, as well as a pathway as an opportunity for health promotion and to have a clear referral system. And another screening tool which is in the process right now, we're going to introduce a pathway for Reality, whereby within these community clinics we are going to give the tools to our healthcare professionals in order to be able to flag and identify patients and people who are frail within the community, so that we will have the opportunity to refer them as quickly as possible both to primary care and, if needed be, to the geriatrics department or tertiary care as needed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Cremon. I truly admire the way you communicate in a very clear way. So thank you so much for that. Ronald, I know that you're very passionate, a passionate nurse. Both Jeffrey, basically all of you, already gave us an overview of why it's essential to have a multidisciplinary team. But from your point of view, why it's so critical to improve the current system and services?
Every patient, every client has his own needs. And as we've seen even in the surveys, it is not just the service that we give. There is the expectation. I'm a nursing professional, and I represent some of my colleagues here and even my community care nurses. The important is that we have a multidisciplinary approach which is integrated together, and everybody will know the patient inside out from top to bottom. Let's take an example. If we have a patient who comes in with a case of a diabetes, it is not just to check the glucose and you know that the patient knows how to take his medication. You have to see and you have to assess the patient, even the risk of his disease. We know that diabetes can deteriorate into problems with retinopathies, that means with your vision, problem with neuropathy, with nerves and vascular system, and also they might even deteriorate even their kidney function. So the important is that you see the patient holistically. And this is one of the most thing that I'm proud of, being part of this team, that we work together and we refer patients, even nurses refer patients to the podologist to take care of their toenails, to prevent infections. We also refer patients to our physios, so they can help the patient to see how they can walk, his gait, probability if they need proper shoes. We also integrate with the nutritionists, the dietitians, because believe me, we still got patients who they suffer even financially, that every day they either eat pasticci or they eat timpana. So education is very, very, very important. In fact, looking in patient holistically, we also involve outside stakeholders like a POCH, domestic violence, mental health. So we see the patients totally from top to bottom, and the idea is, and we're passionate about it, we have a whole society concept towards health, not just to treat, but to prevent, promote, and give a better well-being, because it will be beneficial not just for the individual, but for the society as a whole, and also the Ministry of Health and our finances and our resources. We can benefit from that.
So, Ronald, what you're saying is, besides the healthcare, you also look into the emotional and the psychological well-being of the patient.
Yes. In fact, Ms. Camilleri mentioned it before. We look also at the whole social determinants of health. We have to see people, what they're eating, how they dress up, if their personal integrity, their mental status. Sometimes we've got patients, some of my colleagues can tell you, they can come just to spend some time to speak with us because they are lonely. That is also part of our concept.
That's a growing issue, isn't it?
It is.
I know, Dr. Charmaine, it's part of your professional duties as well. Maybe you can share some insights into it.
Yes, as my colleague correctly mentioned, the fact that there is a multidisciplinary approach within these clinics, apart from the holistic care that we've mentioned, the social, physical, emotional aspect of to cater for all the patient needs, there is less fragmentation as well, so that the patient is aware that the difficulties or the health needs that the patient is experiencing, there is a team of professionals within the same block. Okay? Apart from that, we learn from each other. Okay? Because medical education is a lifelong process. So having different expertise under the same roof helps for collaboration. And when there is collaboration, there is learning as well. Because we are all in a profession where there is lifelong learning and continued professional development. And having specialists in their own field working together under the same roof, the collaboration automatically means that we're sharing experiences and learning from each other, apart from the team building experience, which makes the work process much more enjoyable.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cremona. One last question, if I may, to Carmel. Even though, Carmel, I have to commend you because in your introductory remarks, you outlined everything, all the 3 questions that I had prepared. But possibly you can give us some insights on the differences between the primary healthcare in Malta and in Gozo. Do you see any peculiarities, any specific challenges or opportunities?
The first challenge is the place we were presently from. It's an old place and there is a lot of traffic. You can't park, but that will be solved soon with the opening of the new Victoria. The other issue is that but in the early 90s, the health center was inside the GGH, part of the hospital, but the two, the GGH and the health center are both in Victoria, but our vision is to communicate with the general public, as Mr. Fern said, that certain services or certain issues that the client might present with can be so easily solved with less waiting time at the primary health care. This is a matter of communication and public education. The difference also between Malta and Gozo, and we strive for it, is that certain services are offered by the nurses or the multidisciplinary team in Malta. And we are introducing with the new Victoria Health Center and the community clinics certain services that are being offered in Malta, and now they will be in new for Gozo.
Such as?
Such as the ophthalmic clinic that will run a 5-day week, and there will be the eye screening together with the orthoptics and the optometrist. And the duration of the services will be 40 hours a week for an ophthalmic clinic, which is new for Gozo. Other services like the mental health clinic, which will be in Victoria, the podology, which we started at ARP, and it will extend to Ala and to the new Victoria. These are services that in Malta have been for a long time, but will be new for Gozo. They are both the GGH and are both in Victoria, but with the introduction of the well-equipped community clinics and with the education of the general public, we will be in par with the services in Malta.
So, Carmel, can proudly say that we are truly unlocking the full potential of primary healthcare in
Exactly,
Gozo.
because the primary healthcare Gozo gives the services for the Gozitans, the residents, and the visitors. And the visitors, especially on weekends, the Gozo population will double, like the last long weekend.
Of course. Carmel Cordina, Ronald Barbara, Jeffrey Formosa, Kerta Sopardi, Dr. Charmaine Cremona, thank you so much for your valuable input in the first panel discussion. I wish you all the very best. So, thank you, Ron. Thanks. Thanks, Carmel.
Introducing the second group panel, titled New Services. We welcome on stage Ms. Bernice Mikallef, Ms. Silona Police, Ms. Flair Bujeya, and Ms. Marika Podda-Conner. At the end of this panel, a 1-minute video will be presented by Dr. Marius Caruana.
Thank you. Hi, thank you so much. Thank you, Flair. All right, thank you, Mari. Thank you so much, Deborah, and to all the panelists. So, as Deborah mentioned, we do have a short recorded message by Dr. Marius, which will roll later on. Maybe I can start straight away by asking a question to Bernice Mikallef, a senior practice nurse. So Bernice, feel free to take a microphone. Flair as well, feel free to take a microphone as well. Maybe you can just give us an overview of what sort of services have been introduced, new services lately, because this panel discussion focuses primarily on new services.
Basically, this year we have introduced the glaucoma screening in the community as well. It's an opportunistic screening where we provide an opportunity for all the clients who attend the community clinic to discuss the condition, glaucoma basically, and offer them a non-invasive screening service basically. Apart from this, we have also introduced the Birkirkara ophthalmic services as well. Okay. Recently.
And now Ronald just told us you're going to introduce the service in Gozo as well. And what was the take-up so far?
So far we have invested in the eye screening, both in Gozo as well. In Gozo we're going to be much more different. We're going to be more, not only specific on glaucoma. We need to invest on the eye screening in general. When it comes to the community, we have only took one condition, which is glaucoma, so that we can provide more education and services in the community as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bernice. I don't know if you heard Ronald, he was mentioning pastizzi and timpana earlier on. The good news is we're going to have lunch in less than 2 hours, okay? So bear with me. But Flair, I know that together with many other healthcare professionals, I know that by profession you're a registered nutritionist, but I know that you're working on the obesity strategy. What will change with this strategy, and what have you managed to achieve so far?
Thank you, Kate. In fact, as nutritionists at Primary Healthcare, we feel privileged that we have been at the forefront in the development of this new obesity strategy. We know that year after year, Malta has experienced a consistent rise in obesity, which carries both health implications, but also it is a burden on the Maltese healthcare costs. Moreover, there are global and European efforts which are urging nations to develop comprehensive strategies with regards to obesity. When it comes to primary healthcare, the new obesity strategy, it will foster a holistic approach where healthcare professionals will be moving away from just focusing on weight loss to a more comprehensive approach where we will be addressing dietary habits, physical activity, mental health, education, lifestyle factors, among others. Also, I have to mention that all of our service users, for the first time, will benefit from personalized care. So while the dietitian, I have Alon over here who will speak more about that in detail, while the dietitian can provide a customized dietetic plan for patients, us nutritionists, since also doctors, dietitians, they have a limited time with the patient, we have an 8-week program where we can teach, provide the skills, and also provide additional support which is needed to maintain healthier dietary habits. Also, there will be the support of a psychologist through motivational interviewing, which will address barriers and difficulties which the patients face. Many times, it's not just an issue of eat less, move more. All right? So we have to see the patient holistically, and we have to see what is really the underlying cause why a patient would revert to food, what barriers, what are the difficulties which they are encountering in losing their weight. Also, finally, the use of EPR, which will be for record keeping, and also it will facilitate and ensure a smooth transition between us healthcare professionals and also for patients between appointments.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Flair. I know that for many of you, you know the difference between nutritionist and the dietitian, right? But for many, they use them interchangeably and they think they're the same, but your roles are different professionally. So maybe, Ilona, you can enlighten us on what is your role as a professional dietitian and other professionals like your good self in the obesity management and strategy.
Thank you, Keith. As we know, obesity is incredibly complex, and helping people with this disease requires multiple approaches. Obviously, the first approach has to be first-line therapy as diet. It should be as first-line therapy. However, for some people, that alone is not sufficient. For some people who come to us and we read their blood results and they've got other multiple diseases, then we need to resort to pharmacotherapy, such as certain medications, or even at times surgery. So yes, for some people, just diet approaches alone will definitely work, but for other people, dietary intervention has to be in conjunction with pharmacotherapy and, if possible, surgery as well, depending on the client. I'm saying depending on the client because obesity is multifactorial. People who are obese, it's not just because they eat more. It could be one of the factors, but there are several factors such as genetics, sleep, lack of sleep, maybe moods, other disorders, medications that they're on, side effects of other medications. So the role of the dietitian is to factor all these factors within the dietary intervention, not just by asking people to eat less and to improve their diet, because sometimes it can be a bit damaging to just tell people, eat less, eat less. I'm sure that many of the people who are here, you can relate. If you ever tried to lose weight, and first you try to just eat less, or to go on a specific diet, which you've heard recently. Sometimes it works, yes, but sometimes, very often, the weight comes back. And what happens is that there's a new diet in, and someone would recommend it, or you've seen it somewhere, and you try dieting again. Dieting works, yes, as long as you're dieting, but what happens after? And if you regain all that weight, what happens, especially if there are other comorbidities related to obesity? So it's important that there's a health professional, such as a dietitian, who is a professional in the area, who can really guide the person and who can sort of like give those skills to the patient to help them understand what works and what doesn't, especially in relation to their specific needs, to their specific conditions, to their specific blood results. Something important which dietitians do is we help people not just to lose weight and to have a diet plan specific for them according to their needs, but also to be more health literate. Health literacy doesn't relate only to people who are of a certain educational level. many people can have low health literacy, even if they have a good educational level. Health literacy, especially when it comes to dieting terms. So, yes, we need to empower patients by explaining their blood results to them. Even if a patient might seem of low health literacy, when you literally dedicate time and you show them that they are really a priority for you at that moment and that you have the sufficient time to explain it to them, the results, they would take interest and they feel empowered. The problem is that if, for example, there weren't dietitians, because we're quite new to the medical field, for example, dietitians started graduating in Malta within the past 6 years, so that's why we're quite new. Before, doctors used to, or other health professionals used to give advice here and there. You know how it is with diet and food. Everyone sort of like is interested and everyone feels like they can pitch in to the advice. However, within a 15-minute consultation with a doctor, even if the doctor is really passionate about the subject, it's difficult to carve out sufficient time to dedicate to dietary needs and proper dietary interventions, especially when we need to factor in the health choices that the patient is making, the portion sizes, why they're eating that kind of food, and their lifestyle. Some people may have all the intentions to lose weight, to follow a healthier lifestyle. However, when they come to practice, it will be hard for them, because that's the reality. Life is hard sometimes. If your life changed sufficiently, you had several changes, how can you all of a sudden expect someone to just go home and diet because your health is poor? So just before the next time I see you again, you have to make sure that you have lost like 30 kilos. That would be very disheartening for a patient. So yes, such patients need dietitians, nutritionists, and a whole MDT approach together with, for example, psychologists, so that they can factor in the psychosocial area of obesity, and as well other health professionals as well, such as GPs, and there would be a full integration of an MDT. So yes, that is our role of dietitians within an obesity strategy, to see as well the human part of a person who is obese, not just to assist them in weight loss, but to see their holistic health, including their human part as well.
Elona, thank you so much for your detailed explanation. Ms. Camilleri this morning in her speech, she said, let's have this collaborative approach together, and that's what we're trying to achieve today. Possibly you can help us understand the collaborative dynamics and possibly the multidisciplinary approach that you're adopting, and what dietary interventions you're integrating within the system.
I believe that no one kind of health professional can deal with all of it. I can't deal with an obesity strategy just on my own because I am a dietitian. I need the help, the knowledge, the skills, and the integration from other health professionals. So you asked, Flair, what's the difference between what we've been doing and an obesity strategy? To me, yes, the difference is that there's going to be more integration amongst health professionals, which is really, really important. I've been with primary healthcare for the past 6 years, and I've seen obese people, overweight people, people with obesity and also multiple comorbidities throughout the whole past 6 years. However, through liaising with other healthcare professionals, then it can truly be a smooth transition and helpful for not just us professionals, but also the patients themselves. So by integrating, yes, other healthcare professionals into a systematic strategy, then we can provide a better solution and a smoother transition for such patients as well. And in doing so, we can also help to reduce the stigma as well, because unfortunately obesity has some stigma tied to it. No matter how much we try to reduce the stigma, there tends to be some stigma as well, because unfortunately obesity is sometimes linked to sort of like laziness or not trying that hard. However, we need to realize that obesity is itself a disease, and sometimes it has multiple comorbidities, sometimes it doesn't. So for each individual patient, we have to discuss it as an MDT approach and plan out the intervention plan which is most suitable for that patient. And we can only do it improve it and do it much better thanks to an MDT approach, which is the whole scope of the obesity strategy.
Thank you so much, Ilona. Marika, I know that the Migrant Liaison Office is promoting this cultural competence training program among health professionals. Why it's so important for health professionals to possibly understand the cultural context of the patient they're seeing?
Good morning, everyone. Cultural competence is nothing more than negotiating a care plan with a patient coming from a different background. But we need to know who we are talking about. It's one thing talking about someone coming from a raging war, like Ukraine and Ukrainian refugees, and another one who is stable and well integrated into society, although they can still have health problems. During our training, we look at cultural issues and behaviors and the meaning behind them, and other situations like till a few years ago, we did not have to watch out for victims of trafficking. Now we do. Till a few years ago, we did not have to watch out for girls at risk of possibly undergoing FGM, female genital mutilation. Now we do, because we have a specific law, and we have to follow it, and we have mandatory reporting as well. Till last week, we had a very interesting training with physiotherapies in primary healthcare, and all these issues came out. And it was interesting to share experiences and finding ways of how, because there is no easy solution about these things, of finding ways of how to look at the family as a whole, to look at the particular person and their culture. We cannot leave that behind. So cultivating these skills plays an important role in cross-cultural health and in maintaining health equity.
So to give a concrete example, you mentioned the war and like the people from Ukraine who fled the country because of the invasion in their country over the past 18 months. Have you seen any particular challenges to deal with, like refugees from Ukraine over the past few months?
So the first group that came, we organized a session on access to healthcare, so that they will know how, when, and where to seek healthcare if they need to. From there, we organized other sessions. We did a first aid course with them. They are a very eager to learn group. Very much so. The only
we're talking
barrier
about
is the
a group
language.
of how many people?
The first group was small. It was about 12. The second group was 21 who attended. I'm sure there are many more in the community. They are very eager to learn. The only problem we have is the language, like with all other migrants. We also support them with in engaging with the education and the social care entities, so that we will give as much as possible a holistic approach.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marika. Bernice, maybe going back to my introductory question regarding new services, possibly now you can help us understand what type of initiatives are you undertaking to solidify the current existing services?
First of all, we provide a lot of training to the nurses who work in the area. Apart from training, we also have introduced new appointment slots, because useless if you are going to introduce a new service, you have to make sure that you have the amount of appointments allocated for the client, so that they can actually book their appointment there. But basically, one of our strengths in ophthalmic is training and provide support as much as possible to the nurses, because we're a nurse-led clinic. So as much as possible, we have to make sure that the people who is encountering, who is taking care of the clients, are well equipped.
What sort of training?
We provide training, educational training, in-house training. When we get new equipment, new advances, we make sure that all the nurses know how to use them. They can actually explain the client what the service is going to entail. And that is one of our main strengths we have in ophthalmic, basically.
Thank you so much, Bernice. Flair, maybe you can just highlight a bit the possible particular terms of intervention and preventive measures that nutritionists like your good self will be focusing on as part of this obesity strategy.
Yes, in fact, as you well said, the obesity strategy it will be composed of 4 tiers of intervention. Mainly at primary care will be involved with the 3rd tier. So in the 1st and the 2nd tiers, we will be focusing on the preventative aspect, mainly identification, brief interventions, workshops, education, which will be mostly the role of our colleagues at Health Promotion Department. Within primary care, our focus, where for the first time we're going to see a multidisciplinary approach to obesity, together with pathways and referral criteria between each tier, such as referral of patients when they exit Tier 3 and are deemed for Tier 4 criteria. The Tier 4 is when the patient is deemed fit to undergo, for instance, bariatric surgery, which is done at Mater Dei. At Tier 3, the nutritionist's role will be conducting weight management interventions with patients who have a BMI of 30 or else a BMI which is less, but they have other comorbidities. And in fact, we will be collaborating with the MDT team to ensure an integrated approach. Since we are expecting that a large proportion of our patients, besides obesity, because when they exceed a certain BMI, chances are that they will be suffering from type 2 diabetes, hypercholesteremia, hypertension. One of our interventions will be also targeted approaches, all right? So interventions which will cater specifically, such as shorter workshops, which will cater specifically for the needs of these patients.
Thank you so much. Flair, Bernice, Ilona, sorry. Maybe you can share with us what are the possible interventions or possible challenges that you foresee for an effective obesity strategy, and possibly you can highlight how can we possibly overcome these challenges as well. So, Bernice, if I may. Thanks.
So working within an MDT approach would be idealistic. However, there are some challenges, yes. One of them is that, and the scope of the obesity strategy is to undermine it, is that we need to work with other health systems. As Flair mentioned, that we need to work with health promotion, with Darken al-Sahtek. I can see Darlene here. So till now we've been sort of like a bit fragmented. Everyone works alone. Everyone does an amazing job, but we work alone. Now we need to overcome the challenge. We need to be more connected. We need to know what's happening, how patients can be referred, how health professionals within primary health care can refer to other health systems. So we definitely need to work on that challenge. Another challenge is, as I've mentioned, weight stigma and obesity and the stigma associated to it. We need to have training for health professionals, how to word things around interventions related to obesity, because sometimes we might have the best of intentions for the patients. However, the way it comes across, it might be a bit hurtful, because sometimes patients tell me, for example, I've already been seeing you for the past year. I've lost 22 kilos. The consultant didn't know, and the first thing he told me was lose weight. That's the only option, you know. So, and the patient sort of like feels that it's their fault. So there needs to be more awareness about this topic. One of the challenges which has been sufficient work has been going on for it is that to help a smooth transition between what's going on, and for health professionals to really know what's going on with that individual patient, we need to have better communication. And it's difficult sometimes. It's difficult to have the best of communication with all health professionals involved. However, since we've had EPR, the electronic record keeping of patients, it has been super, super helpful, because when I get a patient, I can understand their history, their medical history. I can know which of the other health professionals they have encountered. So that has been really helpful, because I would know that, yes, if the patient is obese and has diabetes, I would know that they've gone to the ophthalmic services, to the podiatry services.
So what's missing?
So this has been really helpful. Now the nutritionists are going to be on board as well, before on board on the EPR as well. Usually we wouldn't have known whether the patients have undergone the course carried out by the nutritionist. So this will be very helpful. Even though this has been a great improvement by having everything on EPR, we would still need regular meetings in which we discuss individual patient cases. It is impossible to discuss each and every individual case, but sometimes I do get particular cases which need more attention. For those cases, I do take the initiative to, for example, discuss it with the diabetologist at that respective health centre. But it is because a person takes that initiative. This has to be more concrete. It has to be
more structured.
More structured, yes, by having specific meetings every, for example, like 2 weeks with a representative, with a health professional representing different medical fields all on board to discuss specific important cases and how they should be planned. So those are some of the few challenges. There definitely are more as we go along throughout the work that it entails. We will definitely understand and we will discover what challenges there are and what needs to be improved, and to work together to overcome those challenges in the best way possible.
Communication is always a challenge. So I come from a communications background, and even within a communications organizations, we do have the same issues, like how come I was not involved and I was unaware of that particular initiative or measure. So I don't know if you feel the same frustration, Marika, Flair and Bernice, when it comes to the communication, or maybe there are other issues you might want to share with us. So Bernice or Marika, go ahead.
Primary Healthcare has set up a cultural mediator service. We have a training program to train cultural mediators who will help us overcoming cultural and linguistic barriers. We cannot cover all languages, but we started off by doing the majority of people visiting our health centers. I would like to plan this training to the Ukraine group, who are new now, because I feel as well that they need to express themselves, taking into consideration that they had to flee their country in fear all of a sudden, and that could easily affect their mental health.
Absolutely. Bernice, thank you so much. Marika?
In fact, one of the challenges we face is that patients come for their eye screening because they're diabetics. Most of the time, we find that they have an amount of diabetic retinopathy in their eyes, and we are challenged with the fact that clients don't know what they have to eat. And all of a sudden, they have to face this problem that the client has to be explained more in depth what the food, the diet that he has to eat. And sometimes that's a bit of a challenge for us, that all of a sudden the client is there in front of you and you have to explain to him very basically, because I cannot go actually in detail as much as they have to do, about their diet, because that will affect directly the eyes, our screening, our work. And that would be excellent. And if we had to discuss the cases, certain cases.
Thank you so much, Bernice. I'm noticing that diet is key. It's like the basic of our well-being and healthcare. So, Flair, I don't know if we want to add something before we conclude.
Yes, in fact, Ilona has well mentioned most of our challenges which we encounter with regards to communication defect, that we will be working alongside each other together, having the system of EPR where there will be smooth communication. We can see what each other has done. It will be extremely beneficial. What would really be helpful would also be outside of primary care. So even seeing what other healthcare professionals, maybe what other nutritionists are doing at other departments, for instance, at health promotion department before they come to us. It would be also good that we have regular meetings with them to allow us that we do not overlap our services, as well as when the patients is referred, for instance, to Dar Kanal Saħtek, when the patient is referred, for instance, to Mater Dei for their bariatric surgery, it is good that there is a good communication between us, the surgeons, the dietitians which are involved with the patients, because ultimately what we have to keep in mind that the patient is a human being, and as much as possible we have to provide the best service possible so that he or she does not miss any link from the service.
Flair, Marika, Ilona and Bernice, thank you so much for your time and for sharing and outlining the opportunities, challenges, but also the new services and how they are contributing to unlocking, pun intended, the full potential of our primary healthcare system. So thank you so much, Bernice, Ilona, Flair and Marika. So with that, I have another good news, because we're going to have a coffee break, but I'll leave it... okay. Thank you, Deborah, for that. I was going to miss Dr. Marius' video message, so here we go.
Welcome to the Migrant Health Service, an outreach service of primary healthcare, working with migrants who arrive in Malta and require access to primary healthcare needs. It has stationed itself as an outreach service in the heart of all this process, involving public health, involving the Home Affairs Ministry, and also involving the IRC reception centres within this process. We offer all services that are equal to the community. We give a GP service to these individuals and do all the database recording through the electronic patients records. Plus, we obviously offer up to immediate life support service to all our residents.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marius Caruana. Deborah.
Thank you for the interesting discussion. We can now proceed to the coffee break. We urge you to stay seated in your current place, since the coffee is going to be served at your tables. Thank you. I welcome you back to the Primary Healthcare 12th Biennial Conference, and let us continue with the panels. Introducing the third group panel, titled New Initiatives. We welcome on stage Dr. Sasha Rife, Ms. Rose Grishti, Dr. Glenn Garcia, and Dr. J.P. Tabone.
Hi, Dr. Sasha. Hello. Nice meeting you. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you so much. So thank you so much, Deborah. Thanks to all of you for making time for us for the last part before the concluding remarks later on. So with the panelists, let us jump into the next panel discussion focusing on new initiatives. And I know, Dr. Sasha, maybe you can share with us how do these AAA, because I can't even attempt to pronounce it correctly, manifest themselves, and what are these new initiatives all about?
Thank you, Keith. So basically, the National Screening Centre, we've traditionally screened for 3 cancers. And last year we also started screening for these AAAs, which are abdominal aortic aneurysms, which are basically swellings in the lower part of the aorta, which is the main blood vessel which supplies the lower half of the body. And with age and with certain risk factors, the wall of the aorta can weaken, starts to expand, and forms these aneurysms. They can become dangerous if they continue to expand, weaken further, and eventually burst. So the whole point of screening for this condition is to identify it early, to monitor it, and to see that if it grows too much or too quickly, that these clients are then referred to Mater Dei for further treatment, which is surgery.
Are you satisfied with the overall effectiveness and possibly take-up as well of these new services?
So before we introduce it and before we introduce any form of service, we conduct an analysis beforehand to make sure that what we're introducing is actually effective and cost-effective and also useful for improving quality of life and length of life. So with that in mind, we introduced the screening, and so far we've screened over 2,700 men at the age of 65 or over, and we've referred over 100 of them to Mater Dei for further monitoring of their aneurysms, and we've even operated on a handful of them.
Wow, that's remarkably quite a significant number of people. Rose, if I may ask you, because we've been talking to different professionals within the healthcare, you specialize in immunization. What are the main responsibilities of an immunization specialized nurse?
Yes, good afternoon. Nurses have a major role in advising and promoting immunization. They administer vaccinations in accordance with the national immunization schedule, together with those that are applicable to adults, as well as travel vaccines and the annual influenza vaccination. Influenza vaccination, now we are taking care of the pediatrics only. It used to be, we used to handle the adults too, as a clinic.
That's great. Dr. John Tabona, maybe you can elaborate a bit on the necessity of establishing a survivorship and also a surveillance clinic in our community, because I know that this is something relatively new now.
Okay, yes, thank you, Keith. So about a year ago, the primary healthcare department set up a cancer survivorship and surveillance clinic. And what this clinic is for patients who have technically survived cancer, so they've been cured. But because there are some cancers which have a chance of recurrence, then they would need a very straightforward test once a year, perhaps once every 6 months. So I'll give you an example of, for example, prostate cancer. Somebody who had prostate cancer maybe 8 years ago, maybe had radiotherapy and is technically cured, but needs a blood test once a year. And what previously used to happen is this gentleman would go to the hospital, he would, park his car, queue up, take up an outpatient appointment, and be told, okay, your blood test is okay, see you next year. And perhaps while he's there, he might say, listen, doctor, once I'm here, my knee's hurting, or I'm depressed, or I've got another problem. And he'd then be told, listen, this is the prostate clinic, so please go back to your GP. So the idea, which we did this in collaboration with hospital doctors, is that the patient who comes for his yearly surveillance blood test does not only get his yearly surveillance blood test, but he gets what we call a GP review. So the patient would generally lead the consultation with whatever his concerns are, and the GP would address those concerns in a normal way. There are two main advantages to this clinic. One of them is we're a very small team of GPs who do this. And we do this in 2 different centers, north and south. And so I always see the same patients. So I've seen him once, I've seen him in 6 months. I know that his knee is hurting, I know what his x-ray shows. And it makes it easier for him, and it makes it easier for me, and it makes it more efficient for the service overall. And the other advantage is that it then frees up specialist care for specialist problems. So we're still in the beginning. We have, I think, about 100 patients so far. But I think there is room for growth, and I hope that's the way it will go.
Thank you so much for sharing that news with us, because part of the objectives of this conference is also to communicate what Ilona mentioned in her remarks earlier on. Sometimes it's lack of communication. We don't know exactly what developments are happening within our system. And Glenn, maybe you can share with us something we have missed out on the overview of new clinics, new services within the primary healthcare system.
Thank you. So yes, we're talking about new initiatives, and as JP mentioned that the clinic he was talking about is collaboration basically between primary healthcare and hospital, and trying to help hospital and create more accessibility. That's just one of the clinics. We're thinking of other initiatives to help out, both with waiting times at Mater Dei, but also to create and garner interest within our ranks. So we have a lot of specialist GPs who are very interested to learn, very interested to do different things and help different patients. In this regard, we are very soon going to launch a Diabetic Center of Excellence at Ormy Health Center, which is basically on a similar level to what JP was talking. Basically, we're dividing this clinic into 3 levels. Level 1 being what used to happen before. So up to now, we've had, for example, a diabetic patient gets diagnosed, he gets referred to diabetic clinic at Mater Dei Hospital, who eventually might tell the patient, listen, you can be followed up at the health center. And there we had the diabetic clinic, which usually runs every day, run by a doctor and a nurse. And that's it, basically. And if there's any problem, we refer back to the hospital. This is going to change. We're going to create a different dynamic. We're going to create 3 levels, whereby level 1 remains this diabetic clinic, what we have at the moment. So the doctor, every 6 months, every year, will get to review the very stable diabetic patients, take their blood tests, their regular blood tests, and their HbA1c, and we monitor how they're doing, and help with lifestyle advice, give them advice on their medication, etc., etc. However, we're going to create the level 2 now. Level 2 is this diabetic center at Ormy Health Center. What happens here is it's basically a one-stop shop for the patient, for the diabetic patient. The diabetic patient comes in when he's referred to the Diabetic Clinic of Excellence. He is seen by a specialist GP who has a special interest in diabetes. He then can get referred on the same day to get an ophthalmic review. He then can see the podiatrist, who will check for any issues with his vascular system, physiotherapy as well. There's going to be room for dietetics as well, and then a consultant who will review the whole data and see what improvements can be made to the patient's management. Level 3 would be what happens at Mater Dei. That is the tertiary clinic in basically the patients who cannot be reviewed at the health center, being pregnant, diabetics with severe other diseases like cardiovascular diseases. Those will, and type 1 diabetics, for example, those will keep being reviewed at Mater Dei Hospital. But the rest, there will be this fluid dynamic between the 3 levels, basically to help the patient have more accessibility to the system. They have to go to different places much less often. They can just get the many services within one appointment as well. And at the same time, it will be more specialized secondary care within our system.
If not mistaken, this is possibly a first for the primary healthcare, like even the operational model you were talking about.
Yes, this system of levels basically is relatively new. However, we're also applying it to other clinics.
Okay, possibly, I don't know, just shooting from the hip, GU clinic?
Exactly. We also came up with a similar system of levels for the sexual well-being clinic at the community clinics run by primary healthcare. It runs on a similar system. So you have level 1, which is your GP in the health center or your private GP, whoever it is, and these can treat or give advice, sexual advice to their patients. However, Up to now, there was only one other option. The patient could go to Mater Dei Hospital as a walk-in or with an appointment. Sometimes they have to wait long periods of time for their appointments because obviously there's so much the GU clinic can do at Mater Dei Hospital. And then they get the treatment over there. And there was very little communication between the GU clinic and the private GP or the GP at the health center. Now there's going to be level 2. Level 2 is run by GPs with special interests. So at present we have 5 GPs who have undergone extensive training in genitourinary medicine. And these will be run at the community clinics, primarily at Melliha and Marsa Xlok. And they will be able to see some patients who have GU concerns. So they can get referrals from the level 1, which once again is the regular GP, but they can also get referrals back from the level 3. So if there's like a case which has already been treated by GU clinic at Mater Dei but needs some follow-up with advice, with monitoring and things, they can refer back to level 2 as well. And besides treating the patients, they will also be able to give very valid advice for the future, basically to avoid problems in the future, primarily with HIV, chlamydia, gonorrhea and syphilis.
Well, thank you so much, Glenn, for sharing that with us. Dr. Sasha, going back to the abdominal screening you've introduced recently, do you have a specific target demographic audience targeting who are invited for the screening?
So basically the risk factor for developing an aneurysm in the abdominal aorta are being male. So males are 6 times more likely to have an aneurysm than women. So our target group is men at the age of 65, because before the age of 65 it's very unlikely to have an aneurysm. So 65 is like the perfect age at which to test. And we send out an invitation to all men who turn 65 1 month after their birthday, after their 65th birthday. However, we also welcome self-referrals, gentlemen who are older than 65, who we did not have the opportunity to invite directly because we only started the program recently, but they're also welcome to be screened.
I know the challenge, at least from other screening programs, is that initially the take-up or people are possibly hesitant. What has been the experience so far?
So initially when we launched, the response was better than it is now. Because there was a lot of hype, there was a lot of publicity. Recently we did another short publicity campaign where it picked up again, but we need much more communication. And
it's always a work in progress.
It's work in progress. So at the moment the response rates are about 50 to 60%, which is similar also to the other screening programs. It could always be better, so there's always room for improvement.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sasha. Dr. Tabone, maybe focusing on these specialized clinics, what lies ahead? Where do you see any areas in particular that you might foresee a possible specialized clinic as well?
So, thank you for that. I think that Glenn has very eloquently pointed out a lot of areas where this can be done. And I think if I take it from a general point of view, medicine over the years, but especially recently, has become, if you like, hyper-specialized. I know very, very much about this very, very small problem. And what we're doing in the community is we are making the case for generalism. So I'm a general practitioner. I don't know a lot about a very specific thing, but I know a little bit about a broad range of things. So both in where I work, and I lead in cancer surveillance, and perhaps in GU and diabetes, and there are many other areas where we can work in this, where a patient who does not really have a very complex problem, has a small problem which can be fixed by a generalist, or has more than one problem. So a patient who has arthritis might also have had thyroid cancer, so they might find themselves in my clinic. A patient who needs a sexually transmitted infection screen might have had prostate cancer or lung cancer and find himself in my clinic as well. A patient with diabetes. So I think where we're going is we're making the case for both in terms of patient satisfaction, but also in terms of efficiency and in terms of having healthcare services which are useful to patients so that they are in their communities, in their homes. We have BEREC across the whole country. Most people will live less than 15 minutes from a BEREC without the inconvenience to the general hospital, both in terms of a lot of people going to outpatients and people who are very specialized will then be free to see the very complex problems which they're good at. So I think we now have a lot of general practitioners who are furthering their studies, who have a lot of what we call now special interest. And, the sky is the limit.
Absolutely. So what you're saying essentially, Dr. Tabone, is that you're becoming more, I don't know if it's human-centric or patient-centric service. I don't know.
So I'm wary of kind of things which come in and out of fashion.
I know.
But what I really want is a service where the old lady who lives across the street from me with a little problem can walk up the road, can see the doctor that she knows, who knows her, who might know her daughter, who might know her cousin, and she goes for her screening or for her diabetes. But once she's there, we ask about her depression or how she's getting on now that she's been, recently widowed. So it is not purely a technical interaction. Yes, your blood test is 7, thank you very much, see you next year. There's a human element which is also important in healthcare and in quality of service delivered.
Of course, that's on the other side, it's challenging because it's more time consuming for you.
So it's debatable. You could argue that it takes 5 seconds to tell somebody your blood test is good. But what's going to happen? This guy is going to say, okay, and if you're only measuring the blood test, then you're right. But if you're measuring who's seen this guy's knee, so he's gone to hospital, he's parked his car, he's waited, and his knee is still hurting. So what's he done? He's then in the afternoon gone to one of the health centers, and he's queued up again, and he's spent more time, and then he's spoken to a second doctor, who perhaps referred him to a third doctor. So if you look at the big picture, I think you will find that it's actually much more efficient, both in terms of doctor's time, but also in terms of patient time. And if you measure it in sort of economic terms, this guy with his knee hurting, how quickly can he get back to work? Then I would argue that clearly there's a case for seeing people with non-complex problems in the community.
That's great to hear. Rose, I know that you are following very attentively to all the developments and initiatives being undertaken by your colleagues. Maybe you can take us through any recent initiatives, developments within the immunization services.
Yes, Keith, this year has been the introduction of the HPV vaccination for boys. It used to be only for girls, 12-year-old girls. Boys born from 2000 onward, as like the girls, are receiving an invitation to attend by appointment to one of the main health centers, Floriana, Mosta or Paula, according to their catchment area, but we can do otherwise in case they can go to another health center.
Okay.
Like, for example, I change address, and we can handle that too.
So this HPV immunization started from mid this year, you're saying?
The girls were always vaccinated.
Correct.
Since year 2000, but the boys were not vaccinated against HPV vaccine. So this is new for the boys. As of January 2023, we started vaccinating the 12-year-old boys. And as of July, we started a catch-up program for the 13 and 14-year-olds so that they can, the catch-up program will follow the 12-year-olds from the 2000 boys. We are all aware of the importance of avoiding transmission of viruses so that we can cause cancer at an early tender age. And another important initiative which we did well is that our program started. By the way, our national immunization program is different from the health center, nor the health center in itself. We started SMSing a week before to the client or patient so that we have non-attendees, less non-attendees. And that really did well.
Do you have any particular figures, like successful rates of improvements in this regard?
Not yet, because it's only...
Just recent.
It is important that whenever a client or a patient attends our clinic, should give us day-to-day late data, so that, for example, change of address, we have to input it in our data so that the SMS or the email, because we take SMS, email and telephone, so that it can work well.
Fantastic. One last question to Glenn, if I may. Glenn, because listening to Rose, it came to mind the importance of prevention and possibly even these immunization developments with regards to HPV to 12-year-old boys. I guess you welcome such developments because they help you in preventive measures, no?
Yes, certainly. In general practice, primary healthcare is not about being reactive mostly. Being reactive to a symptom, you get a symptom and you treat it. That is more the remit of secondary and tertiary healthcare. Primary healthcare, besides having a reactive quality to it, it has a very important role in prevention of all sorts. I mean, vaccines are the primary example of prevention, but advice, for example, we are there, we're in a room with a patient, or a client, let's call him a client, or her, where we can impart our wisdom, if you want, but basically give them good advice about not just their condition, about lifestyle changes, about lifestyle advice in general. So yes, primary healthcare and prevention go hand in hand, basically. It's only a minor, I wouldn't say a minor role, but it's only a secondary role almost that we treat a condition. We are there primarily to prevent, ideally, a condition.
Keith, yes, I forgot something. In collaboration with Mater Dei consultants, specialist clinics, we are also giving the Mpox vaccine nowadays.
As well. Rose, thank you so much. Rose Grishti, Dr. J.P. Tabone, Glenn Garcia, Dr. Sasha Reif, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing your wisdom, to use Glenn's analogy. Thank you so much, Glenn, JP, and Dr. Sasha. So with that, we can move on to the fourth panel discussion.
Introducing the fourth group panel titled Innovations. We welcome on stage Dr. Anne-Marie Sherry, Dr. Renzo Paceascia, and Mr. Rosario Mizzi.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Thanks, Dr. Renzo. Thanks, Rosario. It's like I'm in a confession, right? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. So thank you so much for being with us. Let's jump straight into Dr. Anne-Marie Sherry with the first question. Feel free, Rosario or Dr. Renzo, to take the other mic. Maybe similar to what I've asked other panelists, take us through the new services and initiatives by the telemedicine services.
First of all, thank you very much for having me this morning on this panel. It's a really great opportunity. So the Telemedicine Center has been operating for the last 3 years, since the beginning of 2020. And it forms part of the Primary Healthcare Department's multidisciplinary team, which is committed to the highest levels of excellence and provision of quality integrated primary healthcare service delivery. And also part of its way of exploring new avenues for facilitating patient access to healthcare in the community. This year, telemedicine has seen the introduction of WhatsApp for Business, which has been tremendously helpful. We have 3 dedicated tablets at the center, which has meant that patients now do not have access to telephone consultations, but we can also carry out video consultations. WhatsApp is an app practically everyone has installed on their smartphone, so it does not require a lot of intense digital literacy for access, and it allows also remote acquisition of medical images as well, both picture and video in real time. It also allows us to send out prescriptions and written instructions to patients, but also to pharmacists in the community, and even places like residential facilities for the elderly, other healthcare institutions in the community, or care homes. We have seen an uptake in consultations both by local residents, Maltese and foreign nationals, but it is interesting that foreign patients residing in Malta show a particular preference for video consultations. We have also recently been giving patient results on the phone. And how does this work? Of course, through the electronic patient record, the primary healthcare department can be seen in some way as a large group practice. So the EPR helps primary healthcare doctors communicate with one another, so it's easy to hand over about patients. So patients can phone to access medical consultation. Of course, first we have patient identity verification through the call center agents, and then the call is passed to the telemedicine doctor for discussion of results and further action. Sometimes that further action might mean that the patient actually needs to see a GP in person, because of course telemedicine is one facet of healthcare, but we also have the physical assessment, which is also very important. We have also had recent access to a system called ToxBase. ToxBase is the UK National Clinical Toxicology Database information service, which gives us information about over 21,000 products. Sometimes we do get calls, and it's not infrequent, especially, of course, these things tend to happen out of hours. So, for example, a child has accessed their parents' medication, and patients call in a state of panic, reasonable concern. So we can access ToxBase, look at the information we have about that particular chemical or medical product, and take further steps from there. When we need, very often this means that the patient needs transfer to emergency department, but we can liaise between patient and emergency services to facilitate prompt, efficient and effective care without delay. Telemedicine has also been very helpful in fast tracking of patients in whom there is a high suspicion of having possible cancers. So, for example, if a patient has a positive immunofecal occult blood test plus anemia, especially those of a certain age, we can facilitate their access to prompt referral. And also prompt referral to dermatology, especially through the use of image transmission. We have also been the first port of call for a number of facilities, including mental health care facilities in the community, such as Richmond Foundation, Agencia Poch, Agencia Support. Even sometimes we are called by ambulance services to facilitate action within the community. The pathology lab, especially when they need to trace and bring to care patients who have abnormal blood results. We also carry out lifestyle interventions on the phone, particularly as part of chronic disease management. For example, in the context of diabetes, hypertension, digestive disorders, and similar. We have also been carrying out renewals of Schedule 5 permits, where these can be done by a GP, and of course prescribing. And what is also interesting is that patients in the community today do have their own devices. So some patients have a pulse oximeter to monitor oxygen. Sometimes they get information from their smart devices. Many patients have their blood pressure monitors. And these remote patient monitoring devices, together with the patient's medical history, plus their the list, simply from the list of drug therapy they take, can serve as a powerful source of information about the current state of the patient and what action we need to take, for example, in an emergency setting. And this helps us carry out remote diagnosis and management, but also detection of early deterioration of the patient so that we can refer early to hospital if needed. It can also help us prevent avoidable hospital readmissions and improve access to hospital services where needed. We have also been taking over, especially this is mainly the role of the call agents, the 111 and 145 services which deal with COVID-19 investigation, detection, management, and vaccine certification. Crucially, telemedicine, in particular, at the beginning of its establishment, telemedicine was taking over the important role through its doctors and nurses and other allied health staff and call agents, practically the daily remote care of 28,000 COVID-positive patients in the community. We have also had medication update reviews, which we have been working on together with pharmacists. These involved looking at the patient's current therapy, seeing possibilities for future direction of care, and referring for physical assessment where needed. So we've also had speech therapy services at the centre operating in relation to early screening of young children for autism spectrum disorders, so that these can be brought to attention and interventions put in place early, as my colleague can possibly discuss as well, and possibly can tell you much more than I can. Other important things are that since you have a team in one site, this means that you have lots of heads thinking about the same patient when necessary, so we can regularly discuss cases together, and also if a patient so wishes, another doctor can be available to provide a second opinion. And this is basically, in a nutshell, a lot of the work we do. Of course, we still do vetting of home visits, and at that point, basically, first thing we do is we see if the patient can be managed by us. Otherwise, we can help with patient navigation. Where do they need to go? Do they need care in the health center? Do they need emergency medical care in hospital? Otherwise, do they need a home visit? So that is part of our work. Interestingly, though, since the establishment of the unit, telemedicine consultations have helped drop the number of domiciliary visits to around 85%. And an audit carried out by Dr. Abela, Dr. Harney and Dr. Camilleri in 2021, I believe, had found that in around 2 weeks, 75% of all telemedicine consultations were managed effectively over the phone without a need to reconsult.
So that's a remarkable development.
That's part of the work we
It's
do.
amazing. Like I'm breathless, like listening to you. What you've managed to achieve over only 3 years.
Yes,
I know you might be biased, but possibly what are the main advantages of having telemedicine services accessible to the community? Very briefly.
So I think
Dr.
many things I did mention, but what I can say also is that number one is 24/7 as well. It is accessible to patients who are not digitally literate as well. We can use various communication modalities and various tools. We do serve as a link between the patient and our other colleagues in primary care, but also in hospital. We can carry out diagnostic and therapeutic interventions, access results, and fast track where necessary. We are the first port of call for a number of community care facilities, including elderly care homes, supported living environments, residences for persons with disability, and community mental health services. I've mentioned helping the pathology lab and emergency departments trace patients where necessary, various activities related to prescribing, the multidisciplinary aspect on site where we can discuss together, cost effectiveness, decreasing travel time as well, decreasing waiting area pressures, increasing patient satisfaction, again decreasing the need for home visits, and decreasing clinical congestion, which means freeing up clinical areas for expansion of other services, better and faster access to hospital where needed. We help patients navigate the system, so we help them simplify appointments, understand why they attended the emergency department and the outcome of that, if the patient is still unclear after they've been discharged, or what happened during a hospital admission. And this helps decrease the number of no-shows as well to outpatients.
Oh, that's good.
Yep.
And it aligns with what Rose mentioned earlier as well.
Exactly.
So the wait is over, because I've been waiting for like 3 hours now since Ms. Camilleri's speech when she mentioned AI. And I'm all ears, honestly, and possibly all of you, because last Friday I was in a similar context in a conference focusing on skills, and surprisingly one of the speakers said through AI they managed to detect neurological related cancer. Dr. Pachacha might be well versed to this development, but my question to you is possibly where does AI fit in the primary healthcare, and how it is contributing, and where do you foresee using AI to maximize its full potential?
Thank you, Kate. Primary healthcare forms the basis of any health system in the world. The more that there is a larger focus in primary healthcare, the better the health organization. Now, the Minister made it very clear that our health system is one of the best that we can find across the world. Various surveys have found us to be within the top 5, which is a very good figure for us. We have to say that the skills, all of us here and those that are still working within our health centers, community clinics, we form the peak of the service, which together as a team provides the excellent results. So, the future, we have to, besides looking at human skills, we go to artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nothing but computers, technology, which have been organized in a way through having certified algorithms to help us achieve better results, quicker and safer.
They're essentially collaborating.
Exactly.
They're talking to each other.
I always keep an eye that there should be the human element, which is paramount. And okay, there is a lot of films going on AI taking over global systems, but that as an aside, you need the human element, but our skills are limited because we're a small island as well, and we're overpopulated because we're a very dense population. So we need the technology to assist us. Like our CEO has mentioned, we could start with simple things, and the simple things is the chatbot. And from Grant Thornton, we heard that one of the things people don't know the opening times of our community clinics. And that is something that a chatbot can actually supply and therefore save time for our client support center to dedicate to more important things. That is on the simple level. More complex things is to help us arrive at earlier diagnosis of cancers. And we see, for example, like in the UK, they've already started using algorithms for detecting early breast cancers. And therefore mammograms are passed on through artificial intelligence algorithms. And luckily, over these last few years, they have made these as open source, where everyone can obviously make use of. So it's not a supplier initiative, but it's open to all because there is a benefit to the whole of community. We have limited skills, like for example, We need more radiologists to actually interpret, and the artificial intelligence part is going through a systematic review, because computers, like routine stuff, going through same things, they can identify things faster. And therefore, the radiologist already has a preliminary report that obviously there is a suspected lesion, and obviously it requires further attention. So even the radiologist's time is dedicated to those that already are flagged. And this improves our efficiency and results in better achievement in saving lives. Besides that, we are looking also in the ophthalmic sector, where in our screening for glaucoma and other diseases, we would like to look at AI interpretation, and this will assist in earlier diagnosis of these conditions. And on a third note, we're also looking at using artificial intelligence in cardiology, and basically just simply having electrocardiograms, which can actually be taken by a small device attached to the chest and transmitted digitally over electronic patient record system, which have produced marvels. This is just a flavor. There are many others. The important point is, obviously, one needs to find robust models that are very safe and effective. But this is the promising result that artificial intelligence will give us, that added drive, obviously, to release time for our specialists to serve the more time worthiness, because we are squeezed for time, and therefore AI gives you that opportunity to aid all our staff in doing better.
Exciting times ahead of us. Rosario, maybe you can give us an overview of this Malta-Estonia project called SpeakTX.
Thank you, Keith. This project is based on the concept that in any therapy, the service user is the key actor. Us professionals are there to assess and identify the difficulty and devise a plan how this difficulty can be improved or resolved, ideally. But at the end of the day, it is the service user who needs to actually activate that plan. And as speech-language pathologists, we work into communication, and we never communicate alone unless you are thinking or self-reflecting. We always communicate with another person. And hence, we believe strongly that therapy starts in the clinic and needs to go beyond the clinic, outside where the service user is actually living and experiencing life. COVID it was a difficult time, but it was also a learning curve. And it put us into the fire of learning telepractice. And in a matter of few weeks, we had to go from face-to-face therapy to telepractice, online intervention. We never thought it would have been something that it would be needed in Malta because of our small size, but COVID put us into that situation, and we had to learn. And effectively, we found that in some cases it was even more effective and it was even more beneficial. Wow. And we also discovered advantages of telepractice, as my colleague had already discussed before. Basically, this project is a platform of more than 3,000 resources, therapy resources. The SLP would have a space on this platform. It doesn't remove any role of the SLP. The SLP will still be the decision taker, as my colleagues had already discussed. But these resources are available there online. Then the service user will have an account, and after the SLP devises the therapy plan, the service user can continue the same process in his environment at home. On the other hand, the SLP will be able to monitor the progress of the client. So it's not divided anymore. We are giving the service user to practice at home, and you don't know what's happening. Okay. Now we would be able to monitor the performance of the service user, and we will be able to adjust the therapy plan before the service user returns to the clinic, because we know the performance before they come back. So when they come back for follow-up, we already know the therapy plan that we are going to devise for the next period.
Mentioning all this, Rosario, can you mention any benefits or risks related to SLP through this project?
Well, when you're starting something new, it's always wise to be proactive and see what barriers can exist. One of the barriers would be IT friendliness. All right, so some service users might not be so IT proficient, but we believe that in the future more people would be IT literate. We also see that we would need training for the staff, because they would be changing a little bit the way they are used to work at the moment, and also training to the service user. Another barrier would be financial barrier. Everything costs money, but the costs that will be involved will sort of be of benefits and reduces from other sectors. So let's be positive and look at the advantages. The biggest advantages is for the service user, because they are going to benefit from activities which are more interactive. They are very helpful in maintaining the attention, especially for children, our biggest client group. Another advantage is that it's greener. We would be using less printed material for activities for home. And it's also more effective in terms of clinic use, because the clinic use would focus on the clients who would require the face-to-face intervention. So we are facing a little bit the problem of frequency of services and clinic space. This improves it, because clinic space would be entitled for those who would require more face-to-face contact, while all this can be done remotely. So another advantage is even for the staff, who can balance more their work-family life relationship, which in our case, the majority of our SLPs are young females who are family of women building their family, so this would be very, very useful and very promoting for them.
Almost life-changing.
Yes.
So one last question, Dr. Sherry. I know many of us might be well aware how individuals can access telemedicine services, but potentially you can just highlight very briefly how individuals can benefit from access such services.
So basically, in a nutshell, there are two numbers, 21231 and 2122244. Again, I remind you that the service is available 24/7, and the call is taken by the call agents. The patient is identified according to a standard operating procedure by the call agent. The call is then passed to the telemedicine doctor, who again confirms a number of aspects of patient identity verification again, and the doctor considers what communication modalities might be appropriate for this particular call, and the patient is given this option. The patient makes the option, and the doctor proceeds with the telemedicine consultation as normal. So consultation, assessment on the phone, plus clinical management as appropriate, and of course documentation on the electronic medical record. If the call is in relation to 111, 145 services or appointment scheduling, these calls are handled by the call agents themselves.
Dr. Anne-Marie Sherry, Dr. Renzo Pace-Asha, and Dr. Rosario, Mr. Rosario. I forgot your surname though. Mitzi, sorry for that, Rosario. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing all these developments with us. So thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Renzo. Thanks.
Introducing our last group panel, titled Zooming In on Primary Healthcare's Full Potential. We welcome on stage Ms. Roberta Gallia, Dr. Patrick Hon, and Mr. Adrian Patch.
Hi, Roberta. Thanks, Roberta. Good to see you. Thank you so much. Same here. Hi, thank you. Cheers. So here we are for the fifth and last panel discussion, which hopefully is as productive and interesting as the other four we had earlier on today. Maybe I can start straight away with you, Adrian, if I may. Nowadays, even this morning, we heard about infection prevention and control, which is extremely important aspect of quality healthcare delivery. Maybe you can provide details of the infection prevention and control unit in the primary healthcare and the rationale for the need of the service in this area. Okay. Maybe we can just use...
Hello. Okay, fantastic.
Hello.
Okay, thanks, Keith. When discussing infection prevention and control, it's important that we highlight that the healthcare environment can be a dangerous environment for staff and patients alike. This is especially so if infection prevention and control guidelines are not adhered to by all those involved in healthcare. So, unfortunately, non-compliance can result in patients acquiring a healthcare-associated infection, or even staff may be at risk of acquiring a bloodborne virus, for instance, or any other infectious organism. So this is extremely important that we realize that this environment, we need to make sure that we adhere to infection prevention control standards, which include environmental standards, for instance, the clinical layout, and also ventilation, to give you an example. And also we need to be careful about practices. For instance, hand hygiene, decontamination of instruments, and use of protective equipment, etc., etc. So basically our role in infection prevention revolves around making sure that our healthcare workers comply with these infection prevention control guidelines, standards, so to say. Locally, with regards to infection prevention control unit, this has been introduced in the early 90s in acute care, and it has been later also introduced in 2005 in primary healthcare outside hospital. I think this was a move in the right direction, provided that at the time and even nowadays we are still adopting early patient discharge policies from acute care, and also increasing community services, which eventually led to a greater footprint in primary healthcare and also an increase in services, and also clinical procedures along with invasive procedures. So this was the rationale for it, basically. With regards to infection prevention and control unit in primary healthcare, this is situated in the newly refurbished primary healthcare administration building located in Floriana. It is run by 2 staff members, and we also have a link nurse to support us in Gozo. Basically, we are responsible, as we have seen, in primary healthcare. It consists of 10 health centers around the islands and several community clinics and also a national screening program, national screening unit. So eventually, during these last few years, primary healthcare, under the directorship of Ms. Camilleri, has invested in modernization of facilities and also in increasing services and improving existing services. And obviously, we will still be committed in the future and be pivotal in doing our best to achieve a positive outcome.
And while delivering all these services and increased services due to the increased community clinics and health centers, Dr. Han, I'd like to ask you with regards to quality of care, because I know this is a term used, possibly overused sometimes when it comes to the provision of healthcare services. Maybe you can help us understand what do we mean when we say quality of care, and how do you define it personally?
So quality of care is basically trying to attempt to measure and quantify to which degree any healthcare service meets its set standards, comparable internationally or on a local basis. And it's basically what all of us do, but we're trying to attempt to measure this and improve on the quality outcomes. Quality of care can be broken down in a lot of different dimensions, so it's not just what the doctor does to the patient. It involves timeliness, for example. How long does a patient wait for their appointment? There is equity involved in it, so how are we meeting the needs of socio-economic groups that are a bit underprivileged? There is accessibility in it, so how much can service users who have difficulties with accessing the service be seen and be treated? All these, there's continuity of care in it. Is the person who has been seen being seen by the same doctor, or is the information passed on to the next service provider in a way that it benefits the patient? So it's basically encompassing the whole of primary care, quality of care. And we're trying to attempt to quantify and qualify this and measure it.
In what ways, though?
So obviously this is an international what do you call it? Improvement. They're trying to find ways of measuring what we do. It's not just the doctor with the patient in the office. Everything is behind closed doors and private, and we move on. So on a more global level, we're trying to measure certain quality indicators. There are hundreds and hundreds of these quality indicators, and we are trying to establish a system here in Malta now to find these indicators which are recognizable in our system and to try and measure them.
Thank you so much, Dr. Han, for that. Really fascinating. And each time I'm listening to you and all the other professionals, I'm confirming how illiterate I am with regards to all the services, the quality of care you're trying to deliver, and also the acronyms related to certain professionals, including the allied health professionals, which is an umbrella term used for all different professions. Maybe you can expand a bit, Roberta, on this and how it fits in the primary healthcare.
Basically, in primary healthcare, we have over 200 allied health professionals covering 9 different services. We have the larger groups, which are the speech-language pathologists, physiotherapists, podiatrists. We also have the radiographers, and then we have the smaller groups, which are the nutritionists, dietitians, social workers, and this year we reintroduced the optometry service and orthoptic service. So it's quite a diverse group. Everyone specializes in his area. And they are all autonomous, they are all independent professionals. They are able to assess, diagnose and treat according to their specialization. Because of their difference in specialties, they operate from different areas. Some of them can operate only from the health centers, for example, the radiographers, because they require specific space and machines, which we can have only in the health centers, while the others can operate from the different health centers, community clinics, and we also have services being provided in schools, both church and state schools, so that we are reaching even out for more of our clients, especially the pediatric ones, obviously, which helps even in their daily lives, in the children's daily lives, not to disturb their routine and accommodate the services there too. This year, actually, in summer, we also had a pilot project with orthoptics, where we had visual screening for our 4-year-olds, 4 to 5-year-olds. This service was already being done by our GPs in the schools for older children, but now that we have the orthoptists on board, we started even at a younger age, because it is imperative that our children are screened repetitively throughout their younger ages to try and detect eye movement disorders. We had 172 children who were screened, and in fact we found around 30 students who needed follow-up, which now they will benefit of that follow-up prior to starting school, which would help them even in their vision during school.
Nice.
So,
it's amazing.
Yes.
Besides this initiative, are you considering or planning any other initiatives?
Yes, we had also the Speech Language Center. They carried out another program which was very interesting for children who stutter. It's actually an international program started in the United States. We implemented this project last year for the first time, and this year we had the second program. It's called the Dream Speak Live Camp. And it raises awareness for children who stutter, to make them aware that they can operate, that they can live a life and talk and be involved in activities without being without being conscious about their speech that might leave them leave them back not to integrate and to socialize with other children.
Just to make sure no one is left behind.
That's right. And it was a very successful camp. It is something that we plan to have annually, actually. And this year it was very interesting because it was carried out even in Heritage Malta in Mdina, one of our museums in Mdina. And the participants had a full week of activities, and it was very interesting to see the children relate to the outside world with their difficulties in speech and carry out the different activities that they can. We're also planning to have a podopediatric screening in schools for the next coming year, and we're starting a pilot project in the coming months, obviously when the school starts.
In less than 2 weeks' time now.
That's it. We'll give them some time to settle in.
Absolutely.
So it maybe will be in the second term of the school. And
so you identified a particular school or a number of schools?
We'll start with 2 or 3 schools, and the age range for the podopediatric screening will be from 6 to 8. And again, our professionals will be going there doing the screening to see any difficulties with foot-related difficulties. And then from then on, if they need any follow-up, all of these service users come back to our primary healthcare clinics or health centers, depending on the need.
Great. Thank you so much. Roberta, Dr. Han, I'm going back to you regarding the quality, possibly sharing some insights on the Quality Improvement Committee, which was set up by the primary healthcare management, and what you're trying to achieve through this committee.
Okay, so the committee has been functional about a year. We're a group of 5 senior general practitioners. Some have been promoted in the meantime. And when we started our work, basically we did extensive literature research to look into what quality of care means internationally. There's quite a bit of studies and frameworks available. Unfortunately, they're not very standardized because every country has a different system, and even the healthcare system, how it is set up, they're not all the same. Ours is mostly based on UK standards, but other countries have different systems. And we got hold of at least 5 or 6 different international frameworks, which are basically long lists of indicators that describe quality of care. After researching these, we have established a list of so far 20 indicators which are applicable to our local system. And we have embarked on pilot projects to actually measure those. Just to give you a bit of an idea, so these indicators, they could be quite easy things. So like, for example, how many of our patients have their allergy status recorded on the electronic patient records. This is a safety feature. So the doctor, when they come to open the system, they see, okay, this person is allergic to penicillin, I shouldn't prescribe it. And they won't forget to ask. They can be a bit more complex. So if we come to diabetic care, for example, how many of our patients are meeting the international standards of their control of their HbA1c? Or how many of our diabetic patients have had their serum creatinine measured? Yeah? These are internationally set up standards, and we need to measure if we're actually achieving these standards locally. Then there's a couple of key performance indicators that are tick box exams. So Adrian is here for the infection control committee. So does the system provide infection control? Does the system provide an antibiotic stewardship, which is again a quality measure? And one of the things which we actually set up, and it has been functional since the beginning of the year, is the near-miss reporting. So near-miss reporting, just to give you an idea, is we have a system which is based on a website where at this stage doctors can report anything which happened in the clinic where some bad outcomes could have happened. The doctor recognized that something wasn't working well, and without having a reporting system, it would have kind of fallen by the wayside. But here we have the system which actually allows them to anonymously report anything that might have gone wrong. And we as a committee receive these reports and analyze them and see if there is a pattern. So if a group of doctors always have the same issue, we would be able to try and change the pathways or the setup or the equipment to improve mistakes to actually prevent mistakes from happening in the first place. So this is one of the bigger achievements which we've done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hahn, for that. Adrian, maybe you can share with us what new initiatives are planned for the future to achieve the full potential when it comes to your role of infection prevention and control.
Yes, our role is varied, and this involves a lot of in aspects of healthcare. So we're involved in education and training of staff and devising of new guidelines and SOPs and contingency planning for emerging disease and pandemic threats as well, and clinical waste management. This is our role. It's very varied. In the pipeline, we have some initiatives. Yes, we have initiatives regarding auditing, which we do on a biannual basis at the moment, and we intend to be doing it, increasing the frequency and doing it on an annual basis, because this will give us more information, and we can deliver in a more shorter time frame. It's a very powerful tool in infection control, and we intend to use it to its full potential. And we have another initiative regarding hand hygiene as well. It's the gold standard for preventing HAIs, healthcare-associated infections. We know that compliance, to achieve adequate compliance rates and more so sustaining it, it's difficult. So we need to, according to modern research, be considering also the behavioral approach. So we need to find new hand hygiene modalities to change behavior of our personnel. And eventually not only focus on the conventional interventions which we have. So for instance, having education and training, these are the conventional interventions. They do work, but we need to look into the behavioral approach as well. We will be attending a course. We have been given the opportunity later in December. This is a course on behavioral sciences. So it's been set up by experts in infection control and psychologists, and so we will be gaining the necessary knowledge to pass it on then to our colleagues as well. We have also been working on antibiotic stewardship as well, because it's part and parcel of infection control, considering the limited amount of treatment options we have when we're dealing with multi-drug resistance, especially. In ambulatory care, we have our fair share. In primary healthcare, we encounter these multi-drug resistant organisms, and we also have a lot of prescribing going on. So we need to do something about it. We need to do more. We are doing a lot already. We have education and training, and we have delayed prescriptions by doctors and advice, patient advice. But we need also to look into having maybe community-based antibiotic guidelines. This document has been there already. It's in draft form for consultation. It's been there for a long time, and hopefully we will work on it and focus on liaising with experts in the field to have it updated and made available to our clinicians, because it will be a good as an advantage, So
absolutely,
those are the main initiatives.
Thanks so much, Adrian, Dr. Han, and Roberta. I think we can open the floor for questions. Deborah, I don't know if you want to help me with this and guide us to have a seamless approach to trying to address any questions you might have. So go ahead, Deborah, go ahead.
Since we have no questions, I thank Mr. Keith Demicoli for being our moderator. I now welcome on stage Mr. Joseph Katkuti, Permanent Secretary, Ministry for Health, for the closing speech.
CEO Ms. Roseanne Camilleri, CEOs and DGs of different entities within the Ministry for Health, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. How lucky I am that I have been appointed Permanent Secretary in this ministry. The talent in this ministry is limitless. And I'm not just saying this to make good for the fact that I'm here standing and interfering with your lunch. I'm saying this because it is the truth. I would like to thank the organizers for the invitation. And it is definitely my pleasure being here today for this enlightening conference. And as we come to its end, I would like to take a moment to reflect on the invaluable insights we have gained over the past few days. You, have witnessed the power of collaboration and the dedication of healthcare professionals, policymakers and researchers in the pursuit of improving primary healthcare services in Malta and Gozo. Throughout this conference, you, have explored various aspects of primary healthcare, from its role in preventive care to its impact on the overall well-being of individuals and communities. You have examined the challenges faced by healthcare providers, the importance of patient-centered care, and the need for innovative approaches to address the evolving healthcare landscape. One of the key takeaways for consideration is the critical role that primary healthcare plays in promoting health equity. It is through primary healthcare that we can ensure equal access to quality healthcare services for all individuals, regardless of their socio-economic status or geographical location. By focusing on prevention, early intervention and comprehensive care, we can bridge the gaps in healthcare disparities and create a healthcare and more equitable society. Another significant theme that emerged from your deliberations is the need to continue to strengthen the multidisciplinary approach at primary healthcare level. We have seen how collaboration between different healthcare professionals such as doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and allied healthcare workers, can lead to more comprehensive and integrated care. By working together, we can leverage each other's strengths and expertise to provide a holistic and patient-centered care that meets the diverse needs of our population. Furthermore, the conference has shed light on the importance of embracing technology and innovation in primary healthcare. Digital health solutions, telemedicine, and electronic health records can and are actually enhancing efficiency, improve communication, and empower patients to take an active role in their own healthcare. Embracing these achievements will not only improve the quality of care, but also enable healthcare providers to reach underserved populations and remote areas more effectively. As we conclude this conference, it is essential that we carry forward the knowledge and insights gained here into our respective roles and organizations. Let us commit to fostering collaboration, advocating for health equity, and embracing innovation in our daily practices. By doing so, we can collectively work towards continuing to strengthen our primary healthcare services. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the speakers, panelists, participants, moderator, who have contributed to the success of this conference. Your expertise, your passion, and your commitment have made this event a truly enriching experience. And I would like also to extend my appreciation to the organizers and sponsors who have made this conference possible. In closing, let us remember that primary healthcare is the foundation of a resilient and sustainable healthcare system. It is through our collective efforts that we can ensure the well-being of our communities and pave the way for a healthier future. Together, let us continue to strive for excellence in primary healthcare and make a lasting impact on the lives of the people we serve. Thank you, and may you all continue to be champions of primary healthcare services in Malta and Gozo.
Thank you, Mr. Ketkuti, for your speech. Now, I welcome back on stage Ms. Rosen Camilleri, CEO Primary Healthcare.
I will not take a lot of time. I would like to thank you all for coming here, for staying throughout the duration of the conference. This has been a wonderful experience like the ones before it. And I urge you all to go, not to forget anything when you leave here, but to take everything that we've said with you and reach out to us and come forward with innovations, suggestions, proposals that we can together make a better healthcare system, better healthcare service for all the patients out there, for the population and for us even, because whatever we do, we will benefit from it ourselves. Thank you very much. Thank you again to the organizers. Thank you, Mr. Ketkuti. And I invite you all to join us for lunch now. Thank you very much.
While I once again thank you for your attendance and participation, we urge your cooperation and kindly ask you to follow the organizers to the Oceana restaurant for lunch. Thank you and buon appetito.
swear it was in self-defense.